Otaku in the Marvel DC Universe. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 301 Hadouken. After a flurry of nervous activity, including massage and chakra circulation, Hyuga Noda was finally brought back to his senses. In reality, the little brat wasn't injured at all. He was just suffering from a slight blockage of blood flow after Liang Yue chopped him on the carotid artery, causing a bit of dizziness. He would have recovered just by sitting on the ground for a little while. However, his older brother, the young boy, was probably afraid of affecting the little brat's subsequent matches, so he specially asked a familiar ninja from the clan to adjust him. This made Liang Yue's balls ache. Of course, Liang Yue's chop wasn't that easy to take after all. Even though his physical attributes were sealed, his strength, agility, and constitution were still at 10 points. What kind of concept is that? It's roughly equivalent to half the physical fitness of Captain America, or the average level of a normal amateur sports enthusiast. In short, it's the kind of fitness that only an adult can possess, using an adult's strength to deal with a 5-year-old brat. Honestly, if Liang Yue hadn't deliberately held back just now, the other party's still tender neck would probably have been fractured directly by him. Soon, after a period of waiting, Liang Yue's second match began. The Hyuga clan's internal selection competition is aimed at selecting talents, and to a certain extent, it doesn't care too much about winning or losing, so it adopts a rotation system. That is, even if the previous round failed, you can continue to compete, although the results of the victory and defeat will also be recorded. As the Hyuga patriarch said at the beginning, the battles between these children are not related to winning or losing at all. Even the winner with all the victories may not be selected in the end. The key is to look at the combat awareness shown in the battle process, and whether they have a shining point that can be appreciated. In the second round of the competition, Liang Yue's opponent was a fat kid of the same age, named Hyuga Suwara. Not only was he fat, but he was also quite tall. I don't know what he usually eats to grow up, but he is only 4 years old, and he is already a head taller than Liang Yue. Physical strength is obviously also a kind of capital and strength at the current age. It is enough for him to look down on most people of the same age. According to Liang Yue's observation, in the first round of the duel, this little fat man relied on his advantage to directly push his opponent to the ground. Seeing this, Liang Yue naturally didn't hesitate. When the little fat man rushed in front of him, he moved 2 steps horizontally to the side after letting go of the opponent's focus point. Although there was no classic scene of directly shaking the opponent, it also successfully released the little fat man's impact. However, due to long-term exercise, although the figure looks fat, it is also very flexible. After a slight jump, he had already reversed his direction and center of gravity in the air, and then clenched his hands, bowed, twisted his waist, and faced Liang Yue with several punches in a row. Liang Yue naturally wouldn't show weakness here. A pair of somewhat immature palms followed closely and collided with the opponent's fists. However, at this moment, he adopted a relatively soft strength at the same time of the collision. The palms, arms, and shoulders were also consciously swaying back slightly, directly unloading the brute force from the opponent's fist. This little trick also made the surrounding people's eyes light up. Then, I saw Liang Yue taking the initiative to retreat his front foot, and the whole person suddenly retreated half a position. When the little fat man on the opposite side saw this, he thought that his fist had worked, and he was overjoyed, and immediately wanted to take advantage of the victory to pursue and follow up. Who knows? After Liang Yue retracted his front foot, he only tapped lightly, and the whole person rushed forward again at the same time. A Kigen wave directly knocked the little fat man on the opposite side into the air. Okay, Liang Yue naturally doesn't know any Kigen waves, but this guy's figure and posture at this time are exactly like that, with both hands up and down. One palm hit the opponent's stomach, and the other palm hit the chest. This is a common trick shared by basic gentle fist and bagua palm. It is simple and direct, but it is actually very particular about it when it is really used. For example, when Liang Yue hits the opponent, he can completely lift the palm, hitting the opponent's chest upwards, directly aiming at the little fat man's chin. That power will definitely be more tricky and fierce than hitting the thick chest. In addition, there are more insidious methods than this. That is, the position of the lower palm hits the opponent's abdomen. That is, the position of the dantian, and the upper palm directly slaps the neck in this case, as long as the strength of the palm is strong enough. Once it hits, it may directly damage the opponent's vital points, or even the cervical spine and internal organs. However, what Liang Yue is facing now is just a clan competition, so there is no need to do this. The little fat man on the opposite side fell heavily on the ground at this time after being slapped by him, and then groaned and howled while holding his stomach, obviously losing the power to fight again. As for Liang Yue's performance, the onlookers present, whether it was the patriarch or a group of elders, were very satisfied and showed approving expressions. Little Hinata in the crowd, at this time, put her hands on her chest, showing a face full of surprise. After that, in the third round of the competition that followed, Liang Yue once again showed an amazing side compared with the gentle fist of the Hyuga family. The biggest difference of Bagua Palm is that this national art attaches great importance to the practitioner's application of body skills. Bagua Palm, also known as Bagua Yaoshan Palm. The composition of the footwork is also very simple, one break and one buckle, but if you really want to flexibly apply it to actual combat, this footwork is ever-changing. The style is vertical and horizontal, walking like a swimming dragon, turning like an eagle, slippery and not leaving your hands. When Liang Yue was training in his small courtyard before, in addition to practicing palm and knife strokes against those standing round logs, he also needed to keep circling around the wood with his feet. The purpose is to find the feeling of footwork, balance, momentum, and change. In this third round of the duel, Liang Yue applied this footwork skill to actual combat. As a result, with just one palm, a passerby little brat was knocked off his feet, feeling chest tightness and shortness of breath. Subsequently, Liang Yue was terminated from the competition, because he had already obtained the unanimous approval of the Hyuga Patriarch and the elders, and officially passed the selection. Regarding this, Liang Yue didn't feel any joy or surprise in his heart, and he didn't feel the slightest glory because of it. After all, this competition is purely him beating up children. However, when Liang Yue proved himself in front of a group of clan members around him like this, the way other people looked at him changed one after another. At least it's no longer like before, like looking at a fool. In less than an hour before and after this competition selection ended, overall, the Hyuga family's children performed fairly well. In the end, a total of 3 people passed the selection and obtained the qualification to practice and advance. In addition to Liang Yue, his first round opponent, Hyuga Noda, also entered the list. The remaining third person is a little girl named Hyuga Iyuki, who is only 3 years old, and has already practiced basic gentle fist in a decent manner. It seems that she is also a junior of an elder. Frankly speaking, in Liang Yue's opinion, the little brat named Hyuga Noda really didn't perform as well as the little fat man before. Chapter 302. If you have any difficulties, please contact your parents. After having dinner at the Hyuga clan leader's courtyard, Liang Yue happily returned to his home, carrying with him the Hyuga clan's chakra training method, which he had already memorized thoroughly. Beside him, Shizuka-sensei, Siko-senpai, Nanjiri-kori, and the others, who had been watching the entire live broadcast, were now buzzing around him for no other reason than that after listening to Hyuga Hayashi's explanation of the family's heritage today, the woman had suddenly discovered that the Hyuga clan's gentle fist, which is known as the #1 taijutsu in Konoha village, actually has an amazing similarity to martial arts boxing. In addition, the Hyuga clan's chakra extraction method is also unique, abandoning the attribute changes and extensions of energy in the ninjutsu system, thereby completely transforming it into a more singular form. This idea seems to be very similar to the way martial arts practitioners apply their own true ki, but in the beginning, it was mixed with the cultivator's spiritual power, thus becoming a higher level of energy than acquired true ki. Similar to innate true ki in its low-level state, this kind of chakra can hardly use any ninjutsu with attribute attacks, such as fireball technique, lightning blade, etc. But some 3-body techniques and shadow clones without attributes are not subject to this restriction. This approach also facilitates Liang Yue's daily practice to a certain extent. After abandoning the attribute changes of chakra, the chakra energy unique to the Hyuga clan began to become more sharp and flexible. This situation is somewhat similar to the relationship between martial arts true ki and sword ki. Its attributes are more extreme, but it still belongs to the category of martial arts true ki. Once it invades the bodies of other ninjas, it can disrupt or even disperse the target's chakra. This also explains why, in the original plot, the Hyuga gentle fist can defeat the enemy by hitting acupoints and injecting chakra. The secret lies mostly in the Hyuga clan's chakra. However, once it encounters something with more extreme properties, such as tailed beast level chakra, this effect will be lost. In addition, during the daytime today, When the Hyuga clan leader was teaching them, Liang Yue and the other two selected people were also allowed to choose a special weapon as a family subsidy for them. Hyuga Noda and Hyuga Iayuki chose Kune, which ninjas commonly use, almost without hesitation. As for Liang Yue, he drew a pattern of two short swords for Hyuga Hayashi on the spot. The short sword blade is about 50 centimeters long, the hilt and the blade are almost equal in length. The blade is a palm wide and 2 fingers thick, double-edged. This is not the standard dual swords that Liang Yue used to use, but a weapon similar to the 8-slashing saber, which he designed specifically by combining Bagwood palm and the dual swords mastery skill in Liang Yue's storage space. There are currently pairs of these dual swords made of mysterious iron and iridium ore, respectively, but at this stage, it is obviously not suitable for him to take them out and use them. In the following time, Liang Yue officially began to practice the inner cultivation technique. He naturally wouldn't touch the Hyuga Gentle Fist's chakra extraction method. After all, he has the evergreen art, but if he wants to practice, he still has to solve another problem, that is the difference between spiritual power and chakra. Spiritual power, this kind of energy, has almost no attack power in the initial stage. To exert its power, it can only be used in conjunction with various spells. This is a bit like chakra, which needs to be used in conjunction with various ninjutsu to exert its power. But the problem is that the Hyuga clan's chakra is an oddity in the ninja world, and its nature is more inclined to martial arts. Truki spiritual power, naturally, does not have this ability. Moreover, the Hyuga clan is famous for its clairvoyance. With a spiritual power's form so different from chakra, he won't be able to explain it to the Hyuga clan leader if he asks, "What's the matter?" Just say that you made a mistake when you were practicing ki Takagi. Saya on the other side of the video looked a little gloating at this time, supporting her cheek with one small hand, twitching the corners of her mouth, with a somewhat inexplicable smile on her face. After being slapped by Yuriko next to her, she quickly became well-behaved. Although it's a bit far-fetched, Liang Yue-kun doesn't seem to be able to find a better way now. After thinking about it, Siko-senpai said with a frown. Everyone was silent when they heard the words. Obviously, these young ladies are now very clear that the choice of cultivation techniques cannot be taken lightly. But faking it in front of the Hyuga family is not something that Liang Yue can do now. Why don't Liang Yue-kun just dig a hole and run away? As long as you run out of Konoha village, no one can control what you want to practice. Shizuka-sensei's words seemed very witty, but they obviously violated her mission to protect Konoha, because according to the rules of the ninja village, leaving the village without permission will be regarded as a rogue ninja. Liang Yue asked himself, in his current form as a little kid, he has not yet reached the status and authority of Jiraiya, who can come and go freely inside and outside the village. Why don't Liang Yue, you go ask Madam Xiaozhao next to him had a flash of inspiration at this time, looking at Liang Yue in the video, and said, "This girl is still dressed in cyberpunk fashion, smoky makeup, deep blue twin ponytails, and a delicate little face with a different kind of charm." As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the women suddenly lit up. Liang Yue slapped his palm directly and cursed himself, unexpectedly forgetting that there was a parent by his side. So after pondering for a while, he sent a message to his mother, who was in seclusion. Then, almost in the blink of an eye, his mother sent a small booklet to his hand through the village platform. After opening the cover and quickly browsing through it, Liang Yue immediately breathed a sigh of relief, and a sense of peace appeared on his face. "How is it? Did Madam give you a technique specifically used for disguise?" Yang Bu hugged Arwen's shoulders from behind at this time, looking at him curiously, and asked. "It can be considered a further step. The content of this technique is actually roughly equivalent to a simplified combination of Great Shift of the Universe and Xiao Xiang skill. The biggest function is actually to help cultivators better control the energy in their bodies. Disguise and simulation are just one of its functions." Saying that, Liang Yue continued to look down at the book in his hand, starting to read from the beginning. "Does that mean that after having this secret book, you can freely transform true ki into spiritual power, chakra, and magic?" Nana hugged little King Kong and leaned in front of the camera at this time, saying with some whimsy, "Not that magical. What I mean is that this technique can only simulate the external form and color of energy, and the attributes cannot be changed. Its main function is actually to help me better control energy." Afterwards, Liang Yue began to concentrate on reading the content of this secret book. However, the principle of this small booklet sent by his mother is not complicated, and the content is not much. The so-called Great Layout is simple. Maybe the reason it only took a quarter of an hour before and after. After reading the secret book 3 times, Liang Yue had completely memorized it in his mind. Then, he handed the secret book to the women on the opposite side for them to read on their own. Liang Yue turned off the video himself, calmed down for a while, and then officially began to practice the evergreen art that he had been thinking about for a long time. In fact, the content in this small booklet is not difficult, but for cultivators, it still has certain basic requirements. That is, only after reaching the Xiantian realm, when the cultivator penetrates all the meridians and acupoints in the body, and communicates with the outside world, can it be used arbitrarily. Otherwise, there may be insufficient control over the energy and the running route. Chapter 303 Erzhuzi and Xia Huangmeo. Time flies, and a year has passed in the blink of an eye. It's another spring season. On this afternoon, Liang Yue, who has grown a head and a half taller compared to last year, is wearing a black outfit and has come to the entrance of the Konoha Ninja Academy, accompanied by Hinata's anticipation. A large group of people are currently gathered there, looking at a notice board on the side of the school gate, covered with a densely written list of names. The crowd is noisy. A bunch of little kids about the same age as Liang Yue and Hinata are nervously searching for their names on the list, accompanied by adults' laughter, surprise, disappointment, frustration. These scenes are constantly playing out in the crowd. Today is the day the Ninja Academy posts the admission results for the major clans of Konoha. Sending their descendants to the Ninja Academy is actually just giving face to the village and the Hokage, because even without the school, their descendants can receive the most authentic and professional guidance, just like Liang Yue and Hinata at this moment. Moreover, ninjas are essentially just tools. Don't be fooled by the various protagonists in the original storyline, flaunting their kinship, friendship, and love, seemingly full of positive energy. A bucket of fire-will chicken soup can sometimes even change the entire battle situation. That is, after all, a privilege for a very small number of people, and the acquisition of this privilege mostly depends on bloodlines and plot armor since ancient times. The rest, the majority of the group that constitutes the main body of ninjas, are actually just cannon fodder. Whether one dies or a group dies, in the eyes of certain levels of people, it is just an insignificant consumption. Looking at the groups of 2 or 3 people next to him, who are leaving with their parents' comfort and guidance, with disappointed faces, Liang Yue suddenly feels that this may be a good thing for them. At least, they can live more peacefully. Wow Chun-Kyu, look! You're the first place in the entrance exam. Just as Liang Yue was standing there in a daze, Hinata's voice suddenly rang in his ear, filled with surprise. Is that so? But it's just an entrance exam, nothing to be proud of. Following Hinata's finger, he saw that on the first row of the poster, at the top position, his name was impressively written Hyuga Chun-Kyu. In addition, the 4 characters Hyuga Hinata are not far from him, hanging in the top few names in the first row. Isn't it a bit too high profile? I clearly tried to hold back during the exam. How did I still get first place? Feeling the gazes from all around him, Liang Yue felt secretly depressed. HMPH, it's good that you know. It's just first place in the entrance exam. I'll surpass you soon, Sasuke. Don't be naughty. Just then, a childish voice with a hint of arrogance suddenly came from the side. Liang Yue turned his head and saw that the owner of the voice was a cute little boy with a baby fat, whose dark blue stand-up collar t-shirt made him look fair and lovely. However, Liang Yue only glanced at the other party before looking at the young man next to him, who was giving him an apologetic smile. Itachi-sama, sorry, my brother is ignorant. It's okay. Sasuke and I are friends, and will be classmates in the future. After a brief greeting, the 2 brothers turned and left. In fact, in the past year, Liang Yue often ran into Uchiha Sasuke's figure when he took Hinata to stroll around the village and practice. After all, Konoha village was so big and they were all the same age, so they became nodding acquaintances. After a while the 2 had also had several fights during the practice, and the result was self-evident. Liang Yue used his experience and skills to beat Sasuke. In fact, compared to this second protagonist who often cheats, Liang Yue appreciates his brother Uchiha Itachi even more. Super high IQ, EQ, strength, and looks, he is indeed the brother of Erzhuzi, able to steadily suppress his younger brother in every aspect. If it weren't for a fate in Liang Yue's heart, Itachi-sama's weight is comparable to the 4th Hokage. Known as the Yellow Flash, it's a pity that in the end, it was still because of the innate bloodline problem that he was too prone to extremes. Today is Konoha year 54. Sasuke and I are entering school together. In about 2 years, the Uchiha clan will probably be wiped out. Although it has only been a little over a year since he came to this world, Liang Yue's arrival seems to have quietly brought some subtle changes to Konoha. For example, in the original plot, Hinata seemed to have lost to her sister Hyuga Hanabi in the selection of the successor of the main family, so she was abandoned by the Hyuga clan leader and sent to the Ninja Academy. Regarding this point, the original work also said that Hyuga Hanabi defeated her sister Hyuga Hinata, who was 5 years older than her, before obtaining the succession rights from the Hyuga clan leader. But this year Hinata is only 6 years old, and Hyuga Hanabi was just born last year, and is just a naughty little girl. The battle between the two has naturally not yet taken place, but now Hinata has already obtained the permission of the clan leader to enter the ninja academy with Liang Yue. Just as he led the little lolly next to him out of the crowd, as soon as he scanned the scene, the two spotted the little blonde sitting on the swing across the street under the shade of a tree, looking dejected and secretly shedding tears. That was Naruto Uzumaki. In fact, Liang Yue had always been curious as to why Naruto Uzumaki's hair was yellow, because according to common sense, based on the powerful gene chromosome inheritance alpha and other bloodlines of the Uzumaki clan, under normal circumstances, his hair should be red, and as the child of destiny in this world, Liang Yue had previously paid attention to him out of curiosity. As a result, the next day, he was called into the house alone by the Hyuga clan leader, warned, and seriously asked about the reason for this matter. Liang Yue's reason was that he heard others on the street say that he was a demon fox, so he was a little curious and wanted to investigate. As such, the result afterwards was inconclusive, and since then, although Liang Yue has not deliberately done anything, perhaps because of fate's arrangement, one day, when he was taking Hinata to practice by the river and had grilled a bunch of meat skewers, just as he was about to have lunch, Naruto suddenly jumped out of the bushes. Looking at his dirty and listless appearance, Liang Yue invited him to a barbecue. Since then, the little blonde has been pestering him. Naruto, what's wrong? You look like you're not happy. Chunkyu. And Hinata, I failed. I didn't get into the ninja academia. How could that be? Chunkyu has already taught you a lot of things, right? With those, there's definitely no problem with the entrance exam. I know, but it's just that, the night before the exam, I was too excited and couldn't sleep, so I overslept the next day, and I didn't finish most of the written test paper. Oh, let's go. I'll treat you to Chiriko ramen. Or really, yeah, just to celebrate my and Hinata's successful admission. TCH, what am I going for then? To comfort you for failing. By the way, okay Chunkyu, Hinata, do you think I still have the chance to enter the ninja academy? Under normal circumstances, you can only wait until next year. Then won't I be a grade lower than you? You still have to pass the exam next year to count. I will definitely pass. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304 Snake Training. In the legendary Chiriku Tuchi's humble ramen shop, after enjoying a hearty meal of ramen with plenty of pork slices, Liang Yue led Hinata to the riverside for training. As for Naruto, having just finished a satisfying meal, he temporarily forgot his worries about not being able to enroll successfully and followed along as well. Upon arriving, the little blondie pulled out a fishing line from his pocket, broke off a small branch from a nearby tree, and sat down by the river, pretending to fish. However, his real purpose was to observe and learn from Liang Yue's instruction of Hinata. It was clear that Naruto longed to train and be acknowledged by others. However, as a person with intelligence, Liang Yue would naturally not casually reveal anything about the Hyuga clan's gentle fist secret techniques outside. In the air duel with Hanabi Hyuga, she was defeated precisely because she didn't want to hurt her sister. Moreover, Hinata was severely lacking in self-confidence. In the original storyline, she was later influenced by Naruto and, with age, gradually became stronger. Then, because of her love and devotion in her heart, this little girl ran to confront pain, controlled by Nagato Uzumaki. But now that Liang Yue had appeared, Naruto's screen time by this little girl's side would inevitably decrease. Therefore, Liang Yue would appropriately shoulder some of the responsibilities on the little blondie's shoulders. Hiss, accompanied by a short hiss, Hinata took 2 steps back, her face subconsciously revealing a hint of nervousness and fear. However, the little girl immediately returned to her original spot with determination, trying hard to widen her eyes and put on a fierce look. Pursing her lips and staring at the creature in the cage opposite her hands clenched tightly into fists, and even though her body was trembling slightly, she insisted on not retreating. In her throat, there was even a faint, cute growl. Chunkyu, this snake seems a bit fierce today. How about we make snake soup later? Naruto, carrying the branch fishing rod, sat there with his back to the river, propping up his chin with boredom, but his eyes were always fixed on the snake in the iron cage. This snake is wild. It's a bit troublesome to prepare it for soup. Actually, it's best to pan-fry it on an iron plate. That's easier. Liang Yue, on the other hand, was standing sideways on the trunk of a large tree, his hands in his sleeves, letting his long hair and clothes hang freely. He himself was firmly rooted there like a nail, without moving an inch. That's right, Liang Yue's training method for Hinata was simple. The first goal was to build courage. He used the method of facing animals directly to train the little girl's courage and indirectly increase her confidence. Snakes generally give people the impression of being cold and fierce, although to some extent, this is just a misunderstanding. But when they are trapped in a cage like this and facing external threats, they will all unanimously exhibit the instinctive self-defense reaction of a carnivore. This reaction is often a matter of life and death, so it is naturally very fierce. Hinata was naturally kind and weak, and when facing this kind of animal instinct, she would often subconsciously choose to retreat. Even things locked in cages would make her feel scared. However, this was also Liang Yue's purpose. Over the past year, Hinata had made significant progress in the art of gentle fist through persistent practice. However, due to her own weak personality, she had always been disliked by the Hyuga clan leader and was almost constantly being blamed. In fact, in this little girl's heart, she also desperately wanted to be recognized by her father and wanted to muster the courage to fight bravely, but every time she failed to overcome herself. Therefore, at this time, when she was receiving Liang Yue's targeted training, she also behaved very seriously. As a result, Hinata had made rapid progress in the past month. At least when facing her father, Hiashi Hyuga, her eyes were no longer completely filled with weakness. In some moments of combat practice, she even expressed a bit of ferocity and determination. A few days ago, she even received rare praise from the Hyuga clan leader. This undoubtedly gave the little girl the courage to continue training, and invisibly, her self-confidence had also been doubled. After all, for children, sometimes the development of personality happens in some unintentional little things. Fried snake meat? Okay, but it's best to add a few fish. After hearing Liang Yue's words, Naruto immediately raised his head, looked at him on the tree trunk, a flash of envy in his eyes, and then replied weakly, "Why so listless? You were so excited when we mentioned eating." Before looking at the little blondie squatting below, Liang Yue curved the corners of his mouth. After a few steps, he was completely hanging upside down on the tree trunk. "Well, wasn't I unable to enroll today? I see Chunkyuhum. Can't you really teach me the method of training chakra?" Naruto looked at him on the tree pitifully, like a puppy eager to be fed, his face full of anticipation. "Alice, I've already told you about this matter before. Our Hyuga clan's chakra training method is unique, and I'm not qualified to pass it on to you." Looking at the little blondie's pitiful appearance, Liang Yue said helplessly, "But I really want to learn. I also envy you being able to stand on the tree without falling down, and that substitution technique you used that day was also very powerful. This is a matter of principle. I can't help you." "Then don't you know any other chakra training methods?" "Not the Hyuga clan's secret techniques, just a most ordinary kind. I only know this one. My father did leave behind some spoils of war before, but those were mostly just ordinary ninjutsu scrolls, and experience in using weapons. As for other chakra training methods, I didn't find any." "Oh, teach Naruto the training method. Don't be ridiculous. You must know that as the Hyuga clan's little princess, Hinata's safety has always been a top priority, especially since this little girl was kidnapped a few years ago, and the Hyuga clan even lost the current clan leader's younger brother, Hisashi Hyuga. As the price, it can be said that now, as soon as Hinata walks out of the Hyuga clan's gate, there will immediately be Hyuga clan ninjas secretly following and protecting her. Although under normal circumstances, they will not take action, and even when Hinata is being bullied by a group of little brats, they can turn a blind eye. But Hinata's daily whereabouts and the things that happen around her will be truthfully reported to the Hyuga clan leader by these people. Once a dangerous situation arises, these ninjas will inevitably come out to protect the little girl's safety, including now. It's the same with his innate mental perception ability below the celestial realm. Liang Yue can easily detect the figures hiding around under these circumstances. If Liang Yue really dared to pass on the Hyuga clan's training method to outsiders, his fate would probably be worse than Naruto's. In addition, as Konoha Village's hidden trump card, the nine-tailed Jinchuriki, the little blondie, the importance that the Konoha high-level officials attach to him is definitely far beyond the imagination of ordinary people, completely different from the contempt and rejection of Naruto in the eyes of ordinary people. It can be said that the safety measures attached to him by the village are definitely at least one level higher than Hinata's. Moreover, Liang Yue also knows that on the third Hokage's desk, there is a crystal ball that can release remote observation techniques. That little old man likes to use that ball to observe the people and things in the village when he has nothing to do. Naruto is the focus of his attention under these circumstances. If Liang Yue dared to teach Naruto chakra refining techniques without authorization, then, if the nine tails in this little blondie's stomach cooperated and caused trouble, and there was a riot or other abnormal reaction, Liang Yue would probably be fully responsible therefore, given Naruto's current situation. Even if you were to be taught, it would have to be someone who had been approved by the third Hokage to be qualified. Chapter 305 Spiritual Power and Chakra. Spiritual energy is definitely a very magical kind of energy in terms of its own power. In the initial stages, it may not be as direct as martial arts' true energy, sword energy, or astral energy, but if it is placed in the same category for horizontal comparison, it is definitely much stronger than chakra and magic, which are also energies that supply spellcasting. Therefore, if chakra can allow practitioners to root themselves on treetops or walk on water without falling, spiritual energy can naturally do the same in essence. It's just a method of controlling energy. After practicing the booklet given by his mother, Liang Yue wouldn't dare claim to have reached perfection in his use and understanding of spiritual energy. But at least he already has some experience and attainment. The reason why there are no records of using spiritual energy to climb trees or walk on water in the world where Old Devil Han is, according to Liang Yue's speculation, may just be because these techniques are too low level. After all, in the cultivation system, even at the most basic key training stage, most practitioners with some resources will buy themselves a flying magical artifact. Then, they can jump up and down, freely roaming the heavens and earth. As for within the water, there are also specialized water attribute magical artifacts. Striving for greater heights in cultivation is their pursuit. Constantly thinking about researching some dispensable things is considered neglecting their main duties in the cultivation system. In comparison, chakra is actually a very special energy. It is somewhat similar to initial stage martial arts true energy, both being synthesized from the extraction of biological energy from the human body, combined with one's own mental strength. According to the views of the martial arts system, this is the standard dual cultivation of body and mind. However, what is different is that martial arts practitioners, especially those in the Taoist system, mostly understand a principle that is, the way of heaven diminishes the surplus and supplements the insufficient. Cultivation is inherently an act of defying nature. Relying solely on squeezing the body's limited biological energy will eventually lead to deficit, especially for ninjas in the Naruto world, who seize any chakra they can get and squeeze it out, recklessly releasing elemental ninjutsu. This behavior is actually depleting their body's vitality and life force. Therefore, although ninjas are very strong during their peak, even far exceeding the scope of humans, once their bodies begin to decline, they will collapse like a mountain, and may die directly within a few short years. Among them, the most direct example is the first Hokage, who relied on his innate sage body to constantly use high-power, large-scale ninjutsu, squandering without restraint, and not replenishing reasonably. As a result, after the battle at the Valley of the End, he sacrificed his life in less than 2 years. The other protagonist of that duel, Uchiha Madara, was also the same. If it weren't for Black Zetsu using the Ten Tails chakra to extend his life, he probably wouldn't have had the time and energy to plan the Ninja World War. The third Hokage can be considered a ninja who lived a relatively long life, but according to Liang Yue's speculation, a large part of the reason why the old fellow was able to live long may be because he basically stopped fighting in his later years and knew how to restrain himself and slack off. In addition, he probably ate a lot of tonics and dietary therapy prescriptions on weekdays. In contrast, martial arts practitioners, after reaching a certain stage, will also embark on the path of dual cultivation of body and mind, that is, combining their own mental strength and other focused powers with a martial arts true energy in their danchin. However, most martial artists who can reach this stage have already advanced to the innate realm and also understand how to use the energy of heaven and earth to replace the consumption of their own biological energy. Harmony between man and nature, communicating with nature, will instead replenish themselves due to the infusion of the power of heaven and earth, and thereby transform themselves and achieve another level of height. In comparison, spiritual energy is an even more magical thing, because it needs to be in harmony with heaven and earth from the very beginning of cultivation, transforming the spiritual energy of heaven and earth for its own use. This is a process of seizing the power of heaven and earth to create oneself. And it also requires extremely high talent. Whether or not one possesses spiritual roots is a prerequisite for whether or not a person can become a cultivator. In addition, high-end martial arts worlds may also take this route, directly connecting to the energy of heaven and earth in the initial stage of cultivation, thereby transforming it into innate true energy. After understanding this principle, looking back at the chakra energy of the ninjas, you will find that this is actually more like a quick success cultivation method, which has been stuck in the quagmire of transforming its own biological energy for thousands of years from beginning to end. What is consumed is their own essence and life. People who embark on this path will inevitably not live long. From this perspective, the chakra cultivation route is not even comparable to martial arts true energy, At least the latter has enough potential, a long enough path, and knows how to restrain itself. It generally won't harm one's own life, and Taoist techniques can even prolong life. It's even more incomparable to spiritual energy and cultivation. However, in addition to this, Liang Yue also knows that there is actually another cultivation method in the current Naruto world that is sage mode in detail. The cultivation of this sage mode is somewhat similar to the spiritual energy in the cultivation system, relying on absorbing natural energy to greatly increase the power of one's own ninjutsu and even physical qualities. However, this so-called sage mode is actually more like a state, or an auxiliary enhancement buff ability, which needs to be replenished after being consumed and cannot be held continuously. Moreover, they were created by 3 non-human species, toads, snakes, and slugs, so humans are likely to cause some irreversible risks when cultivating beastification, or even petrification. Moreover, although this sage mode cultivation also has some techniques and in-depth methods, it has not been able to form a path to higher levels and realms within the 3 major clans, although the toad sage, snake sage, and slug sage are in charge, and this sage mode cultivation method also has a certain effect of prolonging life. The clan members under their command also experience normal birth, old age, sickness, and death, and cannot reach their level at all. However, since Liang Yue has not been able to see the power of this sage mode so far, and has not had the opportunity to go to the legendary holy places such as Mount Myaboku and Raichi Cave to personally feel the nature of the so-called natural energy there, he cannot make accurate judgments on many things. However, for Liang Yue himself, his cultivation of the Chongchun Gong has been relatively smooth in the past year, and there have been no abnormal reactions in the process. On the contrary, he has benefited a lot from the continuous accumulation of spiritual energy and the subtle nourishment of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Chapter 306. Roll your eyes in seconds. Unlike the immortal techniques of this world, which use natural energy for augmentation and enhancement, the cultivation system represented by the evergreen skill focuses more on nourishing oneself. In the original plot, Han Laomo, when he first started cultivating, didn't gain any powerful augmentation effects from this technique or spiritual energy. However, he obtained another, more precious type of ability enhancement that is, under the nourishment of heaven and earth's spiritual energy and spiritual power. His body's potential was subtly developed to a level that mortal martial artists could hardly reach. Brain development, body flexibility, keen senses, hand-eye coordination, increased bone structure, abundant energy. It can be said that although spiritual energy cannot be used to strengthen the body or enhance martial arts when first cultivated, it can, to a certain extent, help cultivators highly develop and master their existing physical qualities. It was precisely because of this change that the young Han Laomo rapidly grew from a naive child into a scheming boy with considerable sophistication, and because of this, he, who originally had dull aptitude and insufficient bone structure, was able to overcome many limitations and master the blinking sword technique, which required extremely meticulous thinking and intelligent talent to learn. And Liang Yue at this time is roughly in this kind of situation. Spiritual energy, for the time being, cannot bring him any powerful enhancement as a backup supply for entry-level cultivation techniques such as fireball technique, palm thunder, and wind riding art. It is still slightly, and even to some extent, it is not as practical as magic power. But when he combines this spiritual energy with a great hammer fist, with the cooperation of the two, he can already master and control his current body to the limit. Moreover, under the nourishment of this gentle energy of spiritual power, Liang Yue has also gained many unexpected benefits. For example, after only 1 day of cultivation, the pair of eyes in his eye sockets have already successfully awakened the Byakugan. This may be due to the nourishment and development of his bloodline limit by spiritual energy. It may also be because spiritual energy is too focused on health preservation, and after entering the body, it stimulates his eyes and brain organs to some extent. In short, half a year after Liang Yue obtained the chakra cultivation method, one day, when the Hyuga clan leader was explaining the Byakugan bloodline limit to him, he casually asked him a question: did he have any feeling of wanting to open his eyes? Liang Yue replied with a bit of exaggeration that he had officially awakened the Byakugan 3 months ago. Since then, Hyuga Haruki has completely become a genius of the Hyuga clan, and all kinds of treatment have also risen accordingly. For example, when Hyuga clansmen other than him use the Byakugan bloodline limit, the nerves and blood vessels around their eyes will produce unnatural protrusions, which look a bit ferocious at a glance. Relatively speaking, Liang Yue's protrusions are very inconspicuous. Moreover, according to his own speculation and feeling, once the spiritual power in his body advances to a new realm, when the energy saturation is higher, This eye abnormality may completely disappear at first glance. These seem to be just superficial efforts, just a difference in appearance, but after actual analysis, this is actually a deep-seated enhancement from the energy supplier, as well as control over the control. The same situation can be compared to the phenomenon of nerve protrusion around the eyes after Tonari Otsutsuki awakened the Tensigen in the Naruto movie, which has also been completely smoothed, of course. This is probably just Liang Yue's wishful thinking, although every night, he secretly observes and studies the Byakugan through internal observation and the control methods on a booklet given by his mother, but at this time, he has only just started on the path of cultivation, and his understanding of the Byakugan bloodline limit is still a bit elementary, and according to the records in the original plot, there are two forms in awakening paths for the Tensigen. First, the combination of the Otsutsuki clan's chakra and the Hyuga clan's Byakugan can awaken the Tensigen after successfully opening the eyes. One can obtain powerful power and many built-in powerful ninjutsu skills from the appearance. The Byakugan at that time will become a bright blue, crystal clear eyeball, like a crystal, beautiful, domineering, shining, cool. Even the Rinnegan and the Nine-Tomo Sharingan cannot compare. The other form of the Tensigen is a large eyeball built and combined based on a large number of Byakugan. It can also exert the power of the Tensigen, but it can probably only be regarded as a weapon. In short, judging from the abilities that Liang Yue is currently showing, whether it is successfully awakening the Byakugan after only 2 months of cultivation, or the control over spiritual power, it is enough to be called a genius in the eyes of outsiders. Take the tree climbing and water walking training that he is doing now in the original plot. Sasuke, after 6 full years, when he graduated from the Ninja Academy, began to gradually master it under Kakashi's guidance, but now, Liang Yue has achieved it before entering the ninja school. The difference between them is enough to move many people. However, this is also Liang Yue's purpose, or rather, he is deliberately doing it after all. What he cultivates is not the chakra of a ninja if it is said to be immortal technique. There is no stereotypical symbol appearing in the foreseeable future. Liang Yue will definitely show more peculiarities under this circumstance. He has to take a step ahead and pave the way for his persona with a profound and mysterious sense of mystery. Sure enough, as expected, early the next morning, when Liang Yue and Hinata had just arrived at the school gate for the official start of the Konoha Ninja School, Naruto was already waiting there with a smug look on his face, with his hands on his waist and laughing loudly at the two of them. He shouted, "Wahahaha Hiruki! Hinata! Didn't expect it. I, Uzumaki Naruto, am also going to school. Wahahaha, eh? Yesterday afternoon, Naruto, weren't you still frowning about this?" Why now? Hearing this, although Hinata was also happy for this little kid, a few doubts arose on her little face. "I don't know either. Maybe the people at the school finally discovered that I have the potential to become a great ninja. The great me, am determined to become Hokage." The little blondie obviously didn't think so much. Anyway, he was just a carefree little kid. Whatever the reason, as long as you let me go to school. Looking at Naruto's arrogant appearance with his thumb pointing high at himself, the students and pedestrians passing by couldn't help but show disdain and ridicule towards him. However, Naruto didn't care about this. Maybe he was used to it. That's right. Last night, an old man who often takes care of me also prepared a new school bag and stationery for him. Look, saying that, Naruto immediately turned around and showed the brand new school bag on his back to Liang Yue and Hinata, his face full of show-off. "Let's go. The opening ceremony is about to start in a while, and since we have already come to school, we have to study hard in the future, that's for sure. I will definitely surpass you in the future, Hiruki. I, Uzumaki Naruto, am going to become the Hokage of Konoha." Chapter 307 Class Notes. Isn't that what's wrong? Is that the Hokage on the platform? Why does he look a little familiar? You've probably seen him somewhere before. Our Hokage is a very kind old man, often strolling around the streets. Really? Damn. It's still too far away. I can't quite make out his face. Hey, you two, be quiet. The Hokage is giving his opening speech, looking at Naruto and Hinata, who were whispering in front of him and being warned by their homeroom teacher Iruka. Liang Yue felt a little helpless, but then, he temporarily put these thoughts behind him, secretly activating the spiritual power within his body. After a silent surge, a layer of almost imperceptible white light enveloped his eyes. Around the corners of his eyes, shallow grooves silently protruded. Byakugan mode, activate with a sweep of his gaze, apart from a certain angle behind his head, which he couldn't see due to the obstruction of the caged bird curse seal. A 360-degree spherical view immediately appeared within his observation. This was an all-around exploration method from within the eyeball, novel and wonderful to a certain extent. It could ignore the obstruction of the human body and even external objects, and detect the target from multiple angles, even with X-ray vision. Although Liang Yue could also use his own mental power, hearing, and smell to cover a certain range around him after advancing to the innate realm to achieve an effect similar to a monitoring field. If you were to simply observe with his eyes, the effect would not be as direct as the Byakugan. Perhaps one day in the future, when his cultivation realm improves to a certain level, Liang Yue may automatically possess a pair of eyes that can surpass the abilities of the Byakugan, but at least not now. At this time, Liang Yue's purpose in activating Byakugan mode was nothing else. He simply wanted to observe the chakra within the Hokage's body with a turn of his gaze, just as he aimed his eyes at the little old man on the stage. The other party seemed to sense something. The amiable and kind smile under the Hokage's hat suddenly froze, and he glanced at Liang Yue almost imperceptibly, then nonchalantly continued his rambling speech about the will of fire. However, Liang Yue's observation did not end there. Being inconsiderate, he kept his Byakugan open, watching the surging chakra within the third Hokage's body. When Iruka or other ninjas passed by, he would simply close his eyelids. Anyway, the Byakugan could see through, so he didn't care about this little obstruction. It wasn't until the speech was nearing its end that he slowly withdrew his gaze. He exhaled lightly, a look of as expected flashing in his eyes. After an opening ceremony without much formality, the crowd on the playground was taken back to their respective classes, whether it was fate or because someone deliberately arranged it. In short, Liang Yue, Hinata, Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, and others were assigned to the same class. After a simple speech by their homeroom teacher Iruka, the people below began to go on stage one by one to introduce themselves. Soon after this process, the group of little brats in the class got to know each other. Then teaching began. Iruka stood on the podium with his hands behind his back, lecturing while occasionally picking up chalk to write down some knowledge points on the blackboard. The skills of a ninja can generally be divided into three categories: ninjutsu, taijutsu, and jinjutsu. Chakra is the basic condition for becoming a ninja. In essence, it is the energy extracted from the 130 trillion cells in the human body, combined with our mental power, and condensed into kind of. Generally, a ninja's chakra is divided into 5 attributes: fire, water, wind, lightning, and earth. To release ninjutsu of the corresponding attribute, you must cooperate with the 12 basic hand seals of ninjutsu. These 12 hand seals are rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, sheep. Although it was the first day of school, Iruka obviously didn't want these newly enrolled children to have it too easy. Therefore, relying on his solid basic knowledge reserves, this homeroom teacher immediately stuffed a lot of knowledge about ninjas into the group of little brats in the class. From the origin of ninjas, to the classification of ninjas, to the types of ninjutsu, to the gathering of chakra, and so on. The content was broad, complex, accurate, basic, and covered a wide range. The children from the Konoha families were fine. They had naturally learned a lot of knowledge in this area at home before. With such a large amount of theory poured down, they could barely keep up. But for those classmates from civilian families, their reaction at this time was like listening to a heavenly book. Their faces were full of curiosity, excitement, ignorance, and seeming understanding. After listening for a while, they began to feel dizzy. They didn't remember much of the serious content. They just felt that ninjas were indeed not simple, so awesome, just like Naruto, who was sitting next to Liang Yue. At first, when he heard it, he still looked bright-eyed and enthusiastic, but now his eyes had begun to become confused. His expression was erratic, and he scratched his cheeks. Obviously, the purpose of their homeroom teacher Iruka in talking about these things now was not to make the little brats in the class remember these contents. After all, most of the students in the class were only 6 years old, which is only the level of preschool in modern society. Students of this age cannot receive too much information in a short period of time, even if what Iruka is talking about now is only some very superficial ninja knowledge. But the reason why he still explains it this way is probably just to make the students have a sense of awe in their hearts, both offer the way of the ninja, offer knowledge, and also offer Konoha and his homeroom teacher. In summary, the knowledge that Iruka is talking about now is actually just a simple summary of ninja basics. In the next few years, he will inevitably spend a lot of time, more thoroughly and concretely, teaching these contents to the students in the class. However, even so, Liang Yue will not be careless here. Even if he is now practicing a more advanced cultivation path, but as a cultivator, one needs to have a sense of awe and exploration in their heart for any systematic growth path. To learn and understand it, even if it is only observing from the perspective of reference, one needs to treat it seriously. In fact, not only Liang Yue, But even the young ladies in the Stronghold world seemed very serious at this moment. They were with Liang Yue, each holding a notebook, listening quietly to the lecture through video live broadcast, and recording the key content in it. "Hey Chunkyu, did you understand?" Naruto scratched his yellow hair, turned his head with a look of irritability, and looked at Liang Yue next to him. He wanted to seek recognition, but then, for the first time in his life, he felt a kind of crushing from the height of a genius's IQ. "What are you doing, Chunkyu?" Taking notes. Liang Yue was holding a pencil at this time, quickly writing and drawing in his notebook, while responding softly. In the meantime, some of the key knowledge that Iruka had talked about before had been recorded by him, and he had also made it both graphic and textual. For example, the basic ninjutsu hand seals such as rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, etc., which are represented by the 12 zodiac signs. In addition to recording and writing, Liang Yue also vividly recorded these 12 hand seals in a stick figure style below Sugoi. "Did you understand everything?" Looking at the dense notes on the paper, vortex patterns and a full sense of shock appeared in the little yellow hare's eyes. "Again, I didn't understand some of it, but the teacher will definitely talk about it again in the future," Liang Yue said modestly upon hearing this. Chapter 308 Shadow Clone Technique. The afternoon was for practical combat class, but in Liang Yue's eyes, it was pretty much the same as gym class. Perhaps realizing their gap and shortcomings, Naruto and Sasuke, the two little brats familiar with him, didn't come to bother him in the afternoon. The one doing combat practice with Liang Yue was an unknown extra. After a few moves, the other party was pinned to the ground by him with a grappling hold. After that, Liang Yue went to the side alone to practice kunai throwing and the falling rain of flowers technique. When school was over, he would take Hinata and Naruto to the river to practice for a while, sometimes sparring, sometimes practicing courage with animals. In short, everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. Soon, a month passed in this leisurely rhythm. The group of little brats' school life gradually got on track. However, after the initial excitement wore off, Liang Yue now felt a bit like dying. There was no way around it. Making an adult return to elementary school was boring for anyone. Teacher Shizuka, Senior Siko, and the others could still go to instances in the base world every day, tend to the flowers and plants, and also remodel the surrounding living environment, but he could only laze around in the classroom. Compared to Liang Yue, Naruto seemed a bit excited these past few days because, according to Iruka's curriculum, he would be teaching chakra training methods in class in a few days. "I really don't know to what extent this little blondie can practice with the interference of the nine tails inside him. Why not try to find something to do for myself?" That night, Liang Yue, who couldn't stand the boredom, unconsciously fell into deep thought before using the shadow clone technique. Intending to start double cultivation mode, this shadow clone technique was something he found in the inheritance of his nominal father since Liang Yue arrived in the Naruto world and Hinata Urusaki woke up. It wasn't long before the Hyuga clan returned the things that had been confiscated. The shadow clone technique is not a very profound ninjutsu. Its rank is above the clone technique of the basic three body techniques, but it is obviously weaker than Naruto's signature ninjutsu, the multiple shadow clone technique. Essentially, it uses chakra to create a clone with a physical body. This clone has the same actions and combat abilities as the caster, has a consciousness independent of the caster's main body, a certain resistance to strikes, and can also release various ninjutsu after being dispelled. The clone's memories, experiences, and even the chakra cultivated after becoming independent will all return to the caster's main body. Each clone only needs to cultivate a little chakra or gain a little combat experience, and together it is a massive amount of resources. Moreover, the quality of the shadow clones that Naruto creates is very high, and even Kaguya Otsutsuki cannot distinguish between the real and the fake. This kind of treatment can only be described as having a cheat. However, the multiple shadow clone technique is a forbidden technique and is not something that ordinary people can learn. Hinata Urusaki's father naturally couldn't either, but for Liang Yue now, being able to create one shadow clone is enough. It can help him solve a lot of troubles during the day. When Liang Yue goes out to school, the shadow clone will stay at home to cultivate, and when Liang Yue eats, the shadow clone is still cultivating after school. In the afternoon, this shadow clone will collapse and dispel itself because it can't hold on, and Liang Yue will just take this time to consolidate his own cultivation. In the evening, Liang Yue will restart the shadow clone and sit in meditation and cultivation with it at home, repeating this cycle. Under his almost uninterrupted cultivation mode, Liang Yue's evergreen skill has successfully climbed to the 6th level. That's right, the 6th level. Converted to martial arts internal energy, it is roughly equivalent to the late stage of Hoshin cultivation in just over a year since arriving in the Naruto world. This progress can be described as remarkable, of course. This is mainly due to the foundation laid by Liang Yue before. After all, he is no longer a newbie. In addition to the experience and amazing control in cultivation, although Liang Yue's body has now been forcibly shrunk and returned to the age of 5 or 6, however, he is still in the Xiantian realm, and the meridians in his body have already been connected and reached the realm of harmony between man and nature, and he can directly refine the spiritual energy of heaven and earth for his own use. In this case, Liang Yue's cultivation will naturally be twice the result with half the effort, and now he has another weapon like the shadow clone. The cultivation of spiritual power is different from chakra, but they are both energy. As long as you figure out the difference between the two, using them is actually similar. For example, the shadow clone technique of chakra is used to perform it. The shadow clone will have more autonomy because the nature of chakra energy itself is more inclined to the cohesion of spiritual power. By analyzing a person's chakra, you can even read that person's memories and experiences from it. Therefore, it is almost obvious what kind of compatibility this energy has. Even the spiritual power of cultivators does not have this characteristic in the low-level state. But if you put aside these spiritual powers and only look at the application of mental power, the sword energy in the martial arts system is the best analogy before the qualitative change. It is also impossible to guide the power of elements, but it can trigger some specific energy through the nature of heaven and earth. For example, sword energy. After the spiritual power and human bioenergy are tempered and condensed, there is chakra combining the two. It is easier to stimulate the elemental power of the corresponding attribute with the improvement of chakra quality and proficiency. The ninja's use of elemental power will become more and more superb. However, according to Liang Yue's observation of the third Hokage, the ninja who is currently at the peak of the ninja world, although the amount of chakra in his body can be described as vast as the sea, it is still essentially chakra and has not deviated from the scope of the condensation of bioenergy and spiritual power, nor has there been a qualitative transformation like the transformation of Haoshan true Qi into Xiantian true Qi in the martial arts system. So, theoretically speaking, for a level like the third Hokage, as long as one's own talent is sufficient and one lives long enough, everyone can achieve it by cultivating step by step. Back to the topic. It is precisely because chakra cultivation emphasizes spiritual power that the shadow clones released using chakra are more independent, because chakra contains the caster's memory and spiritual will. The shadow clone that Liang Yue now releases with spiritual power is not as autonomous, and the combat consciousness is a bit weak, but the clone will almost 100% obey his orders. The reason for this is probably because the current stage of immortal spiritual power is mainly focused on developing oneself and nourishing the cultivator, although there is also spiritual power. It is only auxiliary. The situation where it is exaggerated to the point where even memories can be given, like chakra, is not the pursuit of spiritual power cultivation. However, maybe this situation will change after the 8th level of the evergreen skill. After all, after the 8th level, it is equivalent to the Xiantian realm of warriors. After blocking all the doors and windows around him, Liang Yue began to rummage through the boxes and cabinets in his house looking for balloons, while silently thinking about the connection between them in his heart. In the end, without getting what he wanted, Liang Yue had to temporarily give up his whim and planned to buy a few boxes from the store on the street tomorrow. After that, he began to sit in meditation and cultivate with his shadow clone at home. Chapter 309. Deeply immerse yourself in research. Liang Yue's idea was actually very simple. Since he found school boring, he might as well find something to do to divert his exuberant energy. For example, researching some ninjutsu or something. After that, the first thing Liang Yue thought of was the ninjutsu without a name developed by the fourth Hokage, the Rasengan. There was no way around it. This Rasengan occupied too conspicuous a position in the Naruto world, the protagonist of Naruto's daily technique. Besides this, he almost only knew multi-shadow clone jutsu, but one Rasengan still defeated the entire arena in the mid to late stages. The Rasengan could even be upgraded to become a disc, and its power was also very impressive. In addition, with a blessing of various chakra attributes, the Rasengan was given different changes together with another lightning-released Chidori. It almost ran through the entire plot of the Naruto world. Moreover, although the Rasengan also belongs to the category of forbidden techniques, the training methods for this Rasengan are recorded in great detail in the plot. That is, take a balloon, fill it with water, and then use chakra rotation or other movement methods to burst the balloon, which is considered a small success. Although this seemed a bit ridiculous to Liang Yue, he could understand the general idea. In essence, it was to explore a chakra movement method with high rotation and explosive power in the process of bursting the balloon. In addition, the most important thing about ninjutsu without hand seals is its concealment and casting speed. The most ideal state is instant cast, The reason why the fourth Hokage wanted to develop the Rasengan in the first place was naturally to cooperate with his Flying Thunder God technique, which he was famous for, and then teleport and instantly cast a surprise attack. Liang Yue naturally didn't plan to practice this mode even when practicing. He couldn't do it in front of those ninjas, otherwise, where would he go to explain the origin of the Rasengan? Self-created, don't be ridiculous. Fortunately, according to Liang Yue's idea, he didn't want to completely restore and replicate the Rasengan technique. Moreover, compared to making the Rasengan, this guy was more inclined to shoot guns. That kind of spirit gun, raise a finger, and a shock wave immediately shoots out in terms of root. It's a bit like a combination of Rasengan and Sixth Meridian Divine Sword. Although Liang Yue didn't find the secret manual inheritance of the Sixth Meridian Divine Sword in the previous Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber world, the basic one-finger divine skill was there. Moreover, it is not difficult to convert internal force into a more powerful form and release it outside the body like Nine Yang Divine Skill, Zuanming Palm, etc. All have this kind of display method. Leader Zhang also relied on this method to forcefully use a Nine Yang Divine Skill that was originally profound in internal training into a canon-level martial art. As for the Sixth Meridian Divine Sword, which could originally release sword energy with bare hands, sure enough, this thing is not that simple. The reason why the Sixth Meridian Divine Sword is called the Sixth Meridian Divine Sword is first of all because it releases sword energy, not ordinary internal force waves. The key to this unique skill should be the method of converting internal force into sword energy in the meridians of the palms and fingers, which requires some research. Fortunately, my current goal is not that complicated. As long as I can quickly launch the Rasengan, it would be even more perfect if I could slightly control the trajectory after launching it. Hey Chunkyu, what are you doing? One day, after school, by the river, just as Liang Yue was sitting under a big tree, gesticulating in front of his eyes with his fingers, Naruto's voice suddenly came from the side. Turning his head to look, this kid was now holding a fishing rod, squatting on a tree stump, with 3 river fish that had just been caught beside him. It's just that at this moment, there was still a hint of depression on his face. He didn't have the joy he usually had after successfully catching fish. I'm thinking about some things about ninjutsu. What's wrong? Liang Yue asked when he saw this, but he had a faint guess in his heart. Can I ask you about chakra? Naruto hesitated for a while, then opened his mouth somewhat embarrassedly. Of course. Thank you. After some communication, Liang Yue realized that Naruto had now learned the chakra cultivation method taught in the ninja school. But now that more than a month has passed, he has clearly found the sense of ki in his body, but he has never been able to condense chakra. Whenever he was about to make some progress, he would be interrupted by a strange thing. Liang Yue almost knew without thinking about Naruto's situation that it must be the 9 tails in his body that was playing tricks, but he certainly couldn't tell him because according to the original character of Hyuga Chunkyu, it was impossible to know about the 9 tails, and that Naruto was a Jinchuriki. Once this news was leaked, he would inevitably be investigated, and most likely even be directly eliminated by Konoha. So sorry Naruto, I don't know much about your situation either. It shouldn't be that difficult to condense chakra if you have already found the sense of ki and achieved a state of mental clarity and concentration. After Liang Yue pretended to think for a while, he finally replied with a helpless expression, is that so? Even Chunkyu can't solve it? Naruto's eyes suddenly dimmed when he heard this. However, I can teach you another method to speed up the cultivation progress. Saying that, Liang Yue used the shadow clone jutsu in the little yellow-haired boy's surprised eyes. Immediately afterwards, a replica of Liang Yue suddenly appeared in front of him. This time, not only Naruto, but even Hinata, who was originally practicing courage against the snake in the cage next to him, couldn't help but look up, staring blankly at the shadow clone over there. This is called shadow clone. It's an upgraded version of the clone technique that Iruka-sensei taught in class. There's this thing in my father's inheritance. Afterwards, Liang Yue told the little yellow-haired boy in front of him about the benefits of this shadow clone. According to his current thinking, although the shadow clone jutsu can allow the caster to copy another self, there is still a limit. After all, at the very least, after Naruto uses this ninjutsu, the 9 tails in his stomach will definitely not be copied together. In this case, the problem of Naruto's slow cultivation speed due to the interference of the 9 tails can also be solved in disguise. Of course, there is another problem in the middle, but I don't have chakra now. How can I use ninjutsu? After being excited, Naruto quickly thought of the key to the problem. So he scratched his head and continued to ask him this. I don't have any good solutions either. Using shadow clones to cultivate is actually just a compromise. The chakra to successfully perform this ninjutsu in the middle still depends on your own efforts. Liang Yue spread his hands helplessly at this time. The little yellow-haired boy wailed when he heard this, and lay weakly on the ground. However, immediately afterwards, Naruto began to become full of energy again, no longer looking as depressed as before. Liang Yue's approach was actually just helping him set a small goal. Chapter 310 Spiritual Archery. Liang Yue, I did it. I can finally create shadow clones. Wahahaha, accompanied by a burst of arrogant laughter, Naruto, who had grown half a head taller, was now standing in front of Liang Yue with his hands on his hips, his mouth stretched so wide it almost reached the roots of his ears. Beside him, another shadow clone, looking exactly like the little blondie, was also laughing up at the sky in the same posture as the original. It's no wonder the kid was so excited. If it were anyone else, spending 2 whole years doing just one thing, once successful, the emotions in their heart would probably be hard to suppress. That's right. It has been a full 2 years since Liang Yue told Naruto that shadow clones could help him train during this period, perhaps because he had himself as a role model constantly urging him on. Naruto seemed to have lost the mischievousness and frivolousness he had in the original storyline. He spent all day cultivating desperately, constantly trying to condense chakra in various ways. He didn't even miss the time Iruka spent lecturing in class. Unfortunately, although his attitude was correct, he still achieved very little at first. This once made Naruto very depressed and dispirited, and finally, one day more than a year ago, Liang Yue's seemingly casual words seemed to have inspired him a lot. Maybe you should pray to the gods and Buddhas to bless you and get rid of all the bad luck. Invited God into my heart? Alright, sigh, but which god should I pray to? I don't know. Have you ever dreamed of anything divine while sleeping? I dreamed of an arrogant fox. It was so fierce. But it doesn't look like a god. Be pious. It's best to get along with it. Okay, I'll try. I don't know what Naruto did later. In short, a week after that conversation, the little blondie suddenly succeeded in condensing chakra. However, Naruto's aptitude is actually not very good, especially in controlling chakra. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to use the shadow clone technique until now. However, compared to him in the original storyline, Naruto has obviously improved a lot at this time. However, when it comes to growth, he is naturally not the only one who has changed. Hinata has also made obvious progress in these 2 years, at least in terms of courage. The little girl is no longer as shy as before. Although her personality is still kind and gentle, she is no longer so hesitant when she really starts fighting under Liang Yue's sparring. She can already withstand a few moves even when facing the serious Hyuga clan leader. It's just that when the little girl faces her sister, Hyuga Hanabi, she still can't bring herself to do it. Now that you have shadow clones, does it help you in your cultivation? Looking at Naruto, who is laughing wildly in front of him, Liang Yue then asked. Oh, it still doesn't seem to work. His question immediately froze the original ecstatic Naruto, who scratched his head sheepishly and looked at Liang Yue somewhat embarrassed. Liang Yue's face flashed with a look of doubt when he heard this. Well, although I can't use clones to extract chakra, it's still good for fighting, practicing taijutsu, and using Kyunin. Moreover, it doesn't matter if I can't condense chakra. Anyway, I can already cultivate myself. Many people in our class can't even perform the clone technique now. Okay, as long as you can think it through. By the way, Chunkyu, didn't you say you were researching a ninjutsu before? How is the progress now? It's already completed, just a while ago. Huh? Really? You really completed your own ninjutsu? Naruto's eyes widened at this time. He originally just wanted to change the subject, but now he asked with a face full of disbelief. Hinata, who was originally squatting by the river fishing with Hyuga Hanabi, but had been eavesdropping on the conversation between the two, simply dropped her fishing rod. At this time she ran over excitedly, looking at Liang Yue with anticipation. What kind of ninjutsu is it? Can our Hyuga clan use it too? Yes, it's a sealed last ninjutsu. Liang Yue nodded with a smile to Hinata and Hyuga Hanabi, who was hiding behind her, and then raised his right index finger in front of the 3 of them. He aimed it at a thick tree more than 10 meters away. At least 10 people would be needed to hug it. Suddenly, his fingertip flicked, and a bean-sized, arrowhead-shaped shockwave shot out from it, straight forward, moving at lightning speed. It was like a shooting star, with a spiral tail flame trailing behind it in the blink of an eye. It had already hit the tree trunk, accompanied by a short, piercing sound. A hole about the size of a 1 yuan coin immediately appeared on it. The thick and heavy tree trunk was directly pierced through. However, this was not the end. The blue-green spiritual energy arrow still continued forward with unabated momentum, carrying a strong force wherever it passed, whether it was tree trunks, shrubs, branches, leaves, or stones. They were all directly pierced or shattered by this one strike. By the time the power of this one strike was completely exhausted, it had traversed a distance of more than 30 meters. Naruto, Hinata, and Hyuga Hanabi were immediately stunned. This was actually because Liang Yue was deliberately holding back after nearly non-stop cultivation for these 2 years. He had successfully advanced his cultivation to the 9th level of the evergreen art translated into the martial arts realm, that is the level above Xianshan. If we were to simply talk about the power of spiritual energy, it might not be as good as the martial arts Xianqi of the same realm. After all, low-level spiritual energy is a support type of consumable energy in addition to being a supply for various spells. Even the spiritual energy at the Xianshan level still has most of its effect on nourishing life. Fortunately, after some reasonable development, he still managed to research this move, Spirit Arrow. It should be noted that the essence of the Spirit Arrow is Taoist magic, which is comparable to Fireball, Palm Thunder and other spells, rather than a simple spiritual energy wave at Liang Yue's current level. This move Spirit Arrow is enough to pierce through all the trees within 50 meters under full power. Moreover, this Spirit Arrow also has a certain degree of controllability. Of course, the benchmark is only trees. If it were replaced with stones, soil, or harder objects, this distance should be shortened accordingly. Looking in the direction where the Spirit Arrow flew, the few people could clearly observe a trend at this time, that is, as the distance increased, the range of damage caused by the Spirit Arrow was also constantly increasing, or rather, it would be more appropriate to say it was spreading. At the beginning, the penetrating hole caused by the Spirit Arrow on the tree at the forefront was only the size of a coin, but later on, this range of damage began to expand continuously, from a coin hole to the size of a bowl, then from a bowl to the size of a basin, and then to the size of a water tank. In the final stage, the Spirit Arrow could even explode directly. It spread out like a celestial maiden scattering flowers, shooting all the branches, debris, and even the soil in that entire area within a dozen meters into sieves. This power was truly shocking to see. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 The Soft Fist returns. I want to learn. Chunkyu, teach me. Chunkyu, I want to learn too. Me too, me too. Hanabi wants to learn too, looking at the three people in front of him, eager to try and with their eyes shining. Liang Yue's mouth curved slightly. In fact, although this Spirit Arrow technique looks pretty good in terms of power, it is not all of his research results in the past 2 years actually. In addition to this signless ninjutsu, or rather spell, Liang Yue also has several other improved versions of other spells. During this period it can be said that under the mutual verification of ninjutsu, cultivation, and martial arts with the assistance of the Elemental Mysteries knowledge system, in the past 2 years, he can be said to have had a flood of ideas, and many different ideas and thoughts have popped into his mind. Firstly, in terms of cultivation, with the assistance of shadow clones, it saved him a lot of time, allowing him to play to his heart's content during the day. Secondly, going to school with a group of low-grade elementary school students is too boring. If he doesn't want to waste it, Liang Yue must find something to do for himself. Furthermore, don't think that his current life is relatively comfortable. That's only because the dangerous moment has not yet arrived. Once the plot begins, the threat will increase exponentially. Therefore, Liang Yue believes that it is very necessary to make sufficient preparations before the crisis comes. The few spells recorded in the Evergreen skill are, after all, only entry-level spells in the cultivation system. They are okay for dealing with miscellaneous soldiers, but slightly higher-level ninjas, for example, the tailed beast Jinchuriki, the cage level of each village, are a bit insufficient. Therefore, developing a few spells that are more suitable for him is a must. The Spirit Arrow technique that Liang Yue is using now looks pretty good, but if you really talk about practicality, it may still be a bit lacking. Either speed up the firing speed and penetration ability, or strengthen the control. Otherwise, its actual lethality may not be as practical as his pair of penetrator pistols. In short, it still needs to be improved. There is nothing reluctant about teaching it to the little partners around him. However, before Liang Yue could agree, a sudden movement came from the bushes next to him. Immediately afterwards, accompanied by a rustling sound of branches, a figure suddenly emerged from behind. I want to learn too. The person who came was not very old, wearing a blue stand-up collar t-shirt, light gray shorts, with a handsome face, and a cool hairstyle exuding a protagonist's aura. It's just that the two pieces of broken leaves on it are a bit unsightly and a few big steps, He had already ran in front of the group, finally couldn't hold back. Liang Yue thought to himself as he looked at the figure. It's Sasuke, when did you come? Naruto scratched the back of his head at this time, looking at the classmate who appeared abruptly next to him, somewhat surprised. Similar to the development in the original plot, despite Liang Yue's intervention, the relationship between Naruto and Sasuke is still a bit antagonistic. The reason is still because of Sakura. I also want to learn that ninjutsu. Please teach me, Chunkyu. Sasuke didn't pay attention to Naruto next to him at this time, but continued to look at Liang Yue. With a determined look on his face compared with a cute little bean with a somewhat arrogant personality 2 years ago, Sasuke now appears much more mature. However, this seems to be a matter of course. This year is already Konoha year 56, just over a month ago. Itachi had already betrayed Konoha village according to his existing destiny trajectory before leaving. He also slaughtered the entire Uchiha clan cleanly. Konoha village, the once invincible and prosperous Uchiha clan, thus withdrew from the stage of history now. Only the Urzuzi in front of him is left in the entire group. The family suffered a great change. Parents, relatives, and clansmen were all killed, and the murderer was his most admired brother. But before teaching you, I have a request to say. Although this ninjutsu is researched by me, it ultimately belongs to our Hyuga family, so even if you learn it, don't pass it on to others. No problem, okay, I promise, that's fine. But although signless ninjutsu doesn't require hand seals, it also requires a higher level of precision in controlling the chakra in the body, so, with your current situation it is far from meeting the basic conditions for practicing this ninjutsu. Then how can we meet the conditions? Start with climbing trees and walking on water first. After you do these, I will teach you some more refined control skills, okay? Thank you, Chunkyu. Night after training by the river, it wasn't long after returning to the Hyuga family just as Liang Yue, Hinata, and Hanabi were sitting together for dinner. The Hyuga clan leader came to the door then, after a cordial conversation, the ninjutsu of the non-attribute series, Spirit Arrow Technique, was smoothly handed over to the Hyuga clan leader. Liang Yue had actually been mentally prepared for this. After all, he was taking the two direct daughters of the Hyuga family to practice outside. The guardian ninjas of Hinata and Hanabi were naturally also present at the time. They were just hiding on the side all the time, without showing up. The fact that he created the Spirit Arrow Technique would naturally be conveyed to the Hyuga clan leader through these people. Liang Yue didn't think there was anything about this. Frankly speaking, the Hyuga family has been very good to him in the past few years. Resources are sufficient, safety is guaranteed, expenses are not lacking, and the Hyuga clan leader personally teaches the gentle fist cultivation. It can be said that if the blood relationship is not mentioned, Liang Yue would have suspected that Hyuga Chunkyu was Hyuga Hisashi's own son. Under this circumstance, he doesn't think there is anything unacceptable about handing over the self-created Spirit Arrow Technique to the Hyuga family. Moreover, since Liang Yue dared to show it generously in front of others before, he naturally wouldn't have any selfish ideas, and the effect of his doing this is very significant. After successfully obtaining the scroll that Liang Yue had prepared earlier, which recorded the cultivation method of the Spirit Arrow Technique, the Hyuga clan leader was so happy that he directly opened up the learning permission of Advanced Gentle Fist to him. Of course, Hyuga Hisashi's mind was still clear, only allowing Liang Yue to choose one of the Gentle Fist secret techniques to learn. So, after thinking for a while, Liang Yue finally chose the secret technique known as having 360-degree all-round defensive characteristics, rotation. However, this matter does not seem to be as simple as Liang Yue thought. Only 3 days later, the Spirit Arrow Technique he submitted caused another layer of waves, but all in all, this should be considered a good thing. What was your original intention when you created this Spirit Arrow Technique? After practicing for a period of time, I found that our Hyuga family's Gentle Fist seems to lack effective long-range attack methods, which may be a disadvantage when facing other ninjas, so I wanted to develop a ninjutsu that could be launched unexpectedly. Rotation, explosion, scattering. The value of this kind of ninjutsu is very high. Then why do you call this ninjutsu Spirit Arrow Technique? What does this word spirit represent? The word spirit represents the meaning of flexibility. When I created this ninjutsu, I actually wanted to develop it in the direction of a long-range, controllable ninjutsu. Unfortunately, the difficulty of this is too great, so I can only temporarily focus on its power and penetration. I see a long-range ninjutsu that can be flexibly controlled. Little guy, you really dare to think, so you think this Spirit Arrow Technique still has room for improvement? Yes, but with my current ability, I can't do it for the time being, not bad, ha 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 ha. What an energetic and thoughtful young man. Tell me, what reward do you want? Regarding this spirit arrow technique, what reward do you want? Before, the clan leader had already given me a reward as she has now handed over this ninjutsu to the village, and the village has never been stingy with rewards for young people who are good enough. Tell me, what do you want? Feel free to ask. In that case, I want multiple shadow clone technique. Oh? I heard that you seem to be very concerned about the shadow clone ninjutsu before. Is it for cultivation? Yes, Lord Hawkage. Good. Chapter 312. The story begins. When Liang Yue used spiritual energy as the foundation to re-enter the innate realm, which meant breaking through the 8th level and entering the 9th level of the evergreen skill, the long-lost phenomenon of thunder, fire, and wood seemed to be summoned by something, and it reappeared behind him. However, unlike the innate purple haze true key before, the evergreen skill is a wood-type cultivation technique. In the cultivation category, the spiritual energy transformed through cultivation is also wood-type spiritual energy. It must be said that with Han Lao's half-baked aptitude, it was not easy to obtain an evergreen skill that matched his spiritual roots from Dr. Mo. That was definitely a kind of fate. As for Liang Yue, he didn't know if he had wood-attributed spiritual roots like Han Li, but he had already mastered the evergreen skill in less than 3 years. He had cultivated from scratch to the current 9th level, and the fact proves that Liang Yue's aptitude is still very good. At the very least, he is far ahead of Han Lao in the mortal world. Coincidentally, after entering the innate realm, spiritual energy, like martial arts true key, also underwent an advancement, although the degree of this advancement is far from the essential improvement of acquired true key to innate true key in the martial arts system. The characteristics of the evergreen skill's spiritual energy have indeed become more mysterious as a result, especially after obtaining the assistance of the innate enlightenment of thunder, fire, and wood. Some other variables seem to have occurred during the cultivation process. Thunder, fire, and wood is a variant of wood, but its essence is still wood. It can just coincide with a wood-type spiritual energy cultivated by the evergreen skill under the forging and nourishment of thunder and fire. The main body of the wood will become more mysterious and more full of vitality for Liang Yue. This may also be a kind of fate at the same time. From the moment the phenomenon of thunder, fire, and wood reappeared, a feeling suddenly began to arise in his heart. It was as if something was brewing in his body under the interweaving of thunder and fire. Liang Yue felt that a kind of vital alien species was slowly erupting and growing in his heart. Once the time is ripe, it will break through the soil and flutter in the wind with the heaven and earth. It is a pity that neither the shadow clone or the more advanced multiple shadow clone technique can enjoy the blessing of the innate phenomenon of thunder, fire, and wood. Although the current shadow clone has also advanced to the innate realm spiritual energy and has been evolved to a certain extent, it has become more spiritual, and its skills have begun to become more and more flexible. A subtle connection has also been generated between it and Liang Yue, the caster, which can accept his command to a certain extent. However, what the shadow clone transports and transforms is still only the most basic wood-type spiritual energy, innate level basic spiritual energy, unable to obtain the blessing and tempering of thunder, fire, and wood. Although it can also help Liang Yue improve his own realm and level, it is useless for him to nurture the kind of thing in his body that is fatally about to break through the soil. Therefore, every time Liang Yue finishes his cultivation, he has to repolish it with thunder, fire, and wood the next day to prevent some kind of mottling. However, one shadow clone is fine with a blessing of 2, 3, 4, or even more times the spiritual energy. Liang Yue's time began to become a little stretched, but he can't practice in front of people. Therefore, Liang Yue at this time, even after obtaining the multiple shadow clone technique from Naruto, cannot unscrupulously open shadow clones to strengthen his cultivation. 2 clones are already the limit for him. In the following time, Liang Yue once again entered a long-lost state of fulfillment and busyness in the process of developing and researching ninjutsu, cultivating and transforming spiritual energy. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. 4 years have passed. Konoha year 60. This is an important year as for the classmates in the class. When they originally entered school at the age of 6, they were all tender sprouts, but now, they have all entered the teenage stage of 12 years old. Although the life of a ninja school is relatively leisurely, the professional ninja training has also made these teenagers more mature than ordinary people of the same age. Today is their graduation day. The crowd had just finished the graduation ceremony, and before they could recover from the joy and confusion, they were taken back to the class. Then, under the attestation of Iruka and Mizuki, a simple graduation assessment began. If they can pass smoothly, they can receive the graduation certificate from Iruka's hand. as well as the Ford Protector representing the Konoha Jinan certificate. If Liang Yue remembers correctly, the content of this assessment should only be the basics of the 6-year teaching course, one of the 3 basic ninja techniques: clone technique, transformation technique, and substitution technique. Clone technique, with just this little thing, let alone Liang Yue, who has already mastered the more advanced shadow clone and multiple shadow clone techniques. Even Naruto, the only one who failed in the original plot at this time, under his intervention and influence, he has already used the shadow clone with ease. Of course, in order to achieve the current results, the process may be a bit tortuous. It is said that every time Naruto cultivates chakra, he habitually goes to worship the fox immortal first. After 5 or 6 years, it has almost become his mantra. But all in all, the content of this graduation test is nothing at all. Watching the people in the front row start to line up one by one to accept the test, Liang Yue at this time couldn't help but look at Mizuki-sensei, who was sitting behind the desk with a grandma gray middle part and a very kind face. Speaking of which, in the original plot, this person should be a villain, right? A spy? Or a Konoha traitor who is turned against? Now, if there is no Naruto as an introduction, I guess I'm thinking too much about this. According to common sense, Mizuki's identity should have been discovered long ago. Otherwise, with Naruto's half-baked skills in the original plot, how could he sneak into the Hokage's office and steal the scroll containing forbidden techniques without being discovered? This is clearly letting the water go. It's a setup deliberately set up by the Hokage and Iruka. The purpose is probably to let Naruto receive some education of love. Mizuki is probably just a pawn. He doesn't even know he's been exposed, and he's still being used by Konoha until he dies. These people have such deep schemes. Chunkyu. Just as Liang Yue was standing at the end of the line, a little dazed in his heart, Hinata in front of him suddenly came back to his senses, pulled his sleeve, and called out softly, What's wrong?" Looking at the little girl in front of him with a faint look of anxiety, Liang Yue immediately replied, "After 6 years of growth, Hinata at this time has also grown a lot taller, but it may be because she eats too well. Hinata at this stage seems to be a little fat on her cute little face. The baby fat has also begun to become more prominent." Naruto hasn't come back yet. That shouldn't be. He was clearly still there during the graduation ceremony. Hearing this, Liang Yue was immediately surprised. He looked left and right and found that he was indeed not on the classroom. Just as he was wondering, Sasuke in front of him suddenly turned his head, with a bit of disgust on his face, and said to the two of them he just seemed to say that he had a stomach ache and went to the toilet. Oh, I see. Chapter 313 Temporary Entry into the Protagonist Class. Naruto, hurry up, you're the only one left to test. When the classmates in the class finished the test one after another, and then left in groups, happily holding the Jinan certificate, Liang Yue, Hinata, and Sasuke couldn't help but start to worry about that little blondie. Hinata subconsciously covered her nose, while Sasuke turned his face to the side, his eyes revealing undisguised disgust. I'm sorry. I don't know what unclean thing I ate before, maybe the yogurt was expired. It's strange, it was fine this morning." Liang Yue looked at Naruto with an embarrassed look on his face, smiled helplessly, and then relieved him. "Go in quickly, we will wait for you at the school gate. No need. You can go to the riverside to practice. I will go home first to change clothes and then go to find you, okay? Then hurry up." As a result, on the day of training, Naruto did not appear again until night fell and the three returned home. This is not very common for Naruto, who has always regarded becoming Hokage as a mantra and hung it on his lips. Liang Yue was also thoughtful about this. As a result, the next morning, the little blondie came to the classroom with a happy face, wearing a Jinan headband. To meet them when asked, he just hesitated, and then began to show off to everyone, saying that he had learned the multiple shadow clone technique like Chunkyu, and from then on, Liang Yue never saw Mizuki-sensei in Konoha village again. But this is a story for later. After officially becoming a Jinan, everyone is actually considered to have graduated from the ninja school. The reason why they have to return to school today is because they have to be grouped. Then, the respective team leaders will lead this group of newly graduated students to do tasks separately and harvest growth experience. In the original plot, the more famous of this graduating class are the so-called 12 strongest. Among them, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura are led by Kakashi Niji, Little Lee, and Tenten with a hairstyle are teamed up by Kai Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji are led by Sarutobi Asuma, the son of the third Hokage Kiba Inuzuka and Okamaru. Hinata and Shino Aburame are led by Kirina Iyuhi, who is good at illusion. After Liang Yue analyzed it slightly in his heart, he suddenly felt that he seemed to not be able to fit into any team. Kakashi's team just happens to be a love triangle, and they are also the inheritors of the later Konoha Sannin, So it's not good to interfere among these three people, although Sakura seems a bit redundant, as a lubricant to mediate the relationship between the teams, and also as a female charge who exists as a bond. She is actually irreplaceable. The Ino Shikacho trio led by Asuma are traditional family allies, and this combination does not seem to allow outsiders to drill into it. In the other two groups, Hinata and Niji are also in the group respectively. Speaking of, the Byakugan of the Hyuga family is still very precious. If you look at it from the perspective of reasonable matching, Konoha will definitely not let two Byakugan be in the same team. It's too wasteful. So, does that mean I can only enter the passerby group? Thinking of this, Liang Yue couldn't help but sigh softly in his heart, glanced at Hinata next to him with a nervous face, Naruto on the other side with a smile on his face, and Sasuke with his arms folded, looking cold. Forget it, let's leave it to fate. Anyway, I will practice wherever I go. After a while, an unfamiliar ninja suddenly walked in from outside the classroom, holding a small note in his hand. After entering the door, he directly called three names, and then walked out with a cold expression. The three people who were named saw this and quickly stood up and ran towards the door. The matter of grouping has thus begun. The atmosphere in the class, which was originally a bit noisy, suddenly quieted down. A group of teenagers turned their eyes to the classroom door. After a while, the second group, the third group, the fourth group figures began to leave one after another. During the process, Hinata, the little girl, also reluctantly said goodbye to Liang Yue, and then was taken out of the classroom by Yuhi Kurenoi with a bug and dogman. In the end, only Liang Yue and Kakashi's trio were left in the Class A. Could it be that the four of us are in a group this time? Naruto looked at Liang Yue next to him with an excited smile, and then looked at Sakura on the other side, who was looking at Sasuke with a shy and infatuated look. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up into a perverted smile, and the whole person seemed to be immersed in some kind of reverie similar to the situation in the original plot. Although due to Liang Yue's intervention, Naruto's school life was not as lonely and pitiful as before, but this little brat is still full of bad ideas. In the past 4 years of training, because he has been envious of Liang Yue's achievements in creating ninjutsu, the little blondie has also put a lot of effort into this. Then, he actually made some achievements in the next few years. This little blondie has shown his hard-researched results to Liang Yue, Sasuke, and even Hinata more than once. Seduction technique. It is really hard to change one's nature. Click. A soft sound. A man with a very unconventional dress walked into the classroom at this time, and Liang Yue and others immediately focused their eyes on him. Silver sky-high hair, a large mask, and a Konoha ninja headband slanting across his face, blocking one eye, coupled with his lazy and listless look. Suddenly, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura in the audience became curious and full of expectation. Oh, you are the only ones left. That's good, it saves me from calling names again. Saying that, Kakashi scratched his hair, yawned, and then continued, except for Chunkyu, the other three people, come with me. What about me? Liang Yue asked helplessly. When he saw this, in the past few years, because of the creation of ninjutsu, he had been summoned by the Hokage more than once, and he had naturally met Kakashi several times. So, how could no one want such an excellent young talent like himself? You let me think. Oh right. The third Hokage seemed to have said before that your teacher has already found you, but he is not in Konoha village yet, so temporarily, it seems that I am also in charge of you. After speaking, facing Liang Yue's gaze, Kakashi also showed a few insincere apologetic smiles on his face. After learning that he was temporarily unattended, Liang Yue followed Kakashi and his party to the outside of the classroom as a newly formed teacher-student team. The next few people will naturally have to reintroduce themselves. Kakashi's words were very simple, saying that his surname was Hatake and he was a Jonin of Konoha. Naruto's speech was very passionate, and his dream was to become Hokage. Sasuke said bluntly that he was going to find that man to take revenge and revive the Uchiha clan. As for Sakura, then, everyone looked at Liang Yue. Chapter 314. About ideal. There's no need for introductions, everyone knows each other anyway. But if we're talking about ideals, I can only consider it a stage-based ideal. I plan to deeply research this energy called chakra. Facing the gaze of the others, Liang Yue calmly initiated the discussion mode, talking about theoretical knowledge with the people in front of him, or rather, he was actually talking about spiritual power regarding this research. Do you have any direction? You should know that chakra is the basic energy of a ninja. Its origin, including subsequent changes, has been studied by many people since ancient times. That's why the styles and systems of various families and ninja villages today have been derived. Kakashi was clearly also very interested in this topic, leaning against a tree, arms crossed, looking at him. The other three could only listen, because although they had grown a lot since entering the academy, they were actually only 12 years old. They had just embarked on the path of a ninja, and cultivation itself was already a struggle, so naturally, they couldn't talk about in-depth research and discussion. My direction is about the generation of chakra. Liang Yue pretended to stroke his chin, and then replied more specifically, "Don't worry, we have plenty of time to talk today." Hearing this, Kakashi adjusted his posture and lazily asked regarding this question. It actually arose after I observed the chakra within ninjas of different levels. I once the chakra within the third Hokage. As he spoke, Liang Yue extended two fingers to Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura, who looked surprised, and then continued twice, using the Byakugan, once at our entrance ceremony, and again at yesterday's graduation ceremony. Then what did you find? Kakashi asked, looking at him. At this time in 6 years, the chakra within the third Hokage has hardly changed. It has always been vast as the sea, but that's all. In a way, the Hokage represents the pinnacle of the ninja world, the direction and goal pursued by every ninja. But if we look at this issue from the most fundamental perspective of chakra, it's actually just a change in quantity. Leaving aside the different attributes of chakra, the chakra between a newly initiated Genin and the Hokage is essentially the same thing. It's like what the textbook says, the energy extracted from the 130 trillion cells of the human body, and then combined with one's own spiritual will. The students of the ninja school are like this, and so is the Hokage. Liang Yue lowered his head and picked at his fingernails, saying somewhat casually, "Isn't that obvious? After all, chakra is chakra." Sakura asked with a puzzled face. Sasuke listened very carefully, while Naruto's eyes were already filled with spirals. "What I mean is, why can't we continue to make breakthroughs when we reach the level of the Hokage? The amount of chakra is already so much. If we can use this to create a more advanced energy, that would actually be a meaningful thing for ninjas." Liang Yue replied with a smile. "You want to study this? This problem is too big. Many people have tried it since ancient times, but no one dares to say that they have stood at the pinnacle of ninjas. Even someone as strong as the first Hokage, the ninja god recognized by the ninja world, wouldn't dare to say this, so this is even more an issue that people at your stage can study." Kakashi kindly reminded him, seemingly not wanting to see a young talent waste his time. "So I retreated in the face of difficulty, and then changed the direction of my research," Liang Yue said, taking the opportunity to back down. "Yes, at first I also thought that chakra was just a product of the combination of energy extracted from the human body and spiritual will, until later, I learned about some records about sage techniques." As Liang Yue spoke, he reached out and caught a leaf falling from the tree, and then continued, "It is said that it is a cultivation method that can directly absorb natural energy to generate chakra. It is not clear how exactly, only that its power is stronger and it can also get rid of the limitation of extracting chakra from the inside of the human body." "Sage techniques? Where did you see that?" Sasuke immediately asked excitedly upon hearing this. "In the bookshelf in the Hokage building. There are some books about the ninja world. Konoha's various materials. Because I created several ninjutsu, I was specially favored by the third Hokage. It is said that the first Hokage could use sage art back then, but those are just records of some deeds, and the specific cultivation method was not mentioned." Speaking of this, Liang Yue paused, his head tilted at a 45-degree angle, looking at the sky, pretending to be in thought. "My current idea is that the process of extracting chakra is actually very harmful to the body. The third Hokage is 69 years old today, but he looks even older than an average 80-year-old. Even if the chakra in his body is vast as the sea, it cannot make up for the loss in his body. But if we follow the idea of sage techniques, and can research a method, in the second half of cultivation to get rid of the damage to the body when extracting chakra, and directly replace consumption with natural energy, this should be of great help to the maintenance of the ninja's body. Of course, if we can use natural energy to nourish the ninja's body in turn, that would be even more perfect." "So your research direction is actually aimed at extending lifespan?" Kakashi scratched his hair at this time, looking at Liang Yue with some confusion. "Maybe, saying extending lifespan is still too early. In short, I just want to get rid of chakra's demands on the human body." Liang Yue replied with a chuckle. "Your ideas are a bit whimsical maybe. Isn't this talking about ideals?" In the following time, Kakashi's team entered the next routine procedure arrangement, stealing the bells. However, Liang Yue, the auditor, was excluded. Firstly, because he is not Kakashi's student, but only belongs to helping with temporary management. It is meaningless to bring him along in this kind of content related to internal team collaboration. Secondly, this kind of game itself is also meaningless to Liang Yue because in the past few years, although he has put most of his energy into cultivation, given that it is still boring in the classroom during the day, Liang Yue has not given up on the research of ninjutsu in terms of results. There are 3 self-created ninjutsu that have been seen by Naruto, Sasuke, and Hinata, and given to the Hyuga family by Liang Yue. One of them is the weakened version of the recorded in, something he calls, its function is to be able to move the air within a certain area. By cooperating with thoughts and chakra, it can also achieve the effect of controlling objects. It can be said that as long as he has this technique, if Kakashi dares to take the bell away from his palm, it is basically equivalent to giving up the ownership of the bell as a Jonin powerhouse. Kakashi can of course always hold the bell in his hand, but his purpose at this time is not really to guard the bell, but to test Naruto and the other 2 facing 3 teenagers. The difficulty should naturally not be too great, so excluding Liang Yue is undoubtedly his best choice. Chapter 315 Out of Konoha. While Sasuke and the others were busy trying to snatch the bells, Liang Yue went to the river and caught a few fish. When he returned, he lit a bonfire and began to roast them with the spices he had brought. The whole process was slow and leisurely, but fish generally cook quickly, and it's best not to overcook them. So, when Liang Yue came to enjoy his grilled fish under the tree, Naruto and the others were still being toyed with by Kakashi. Completely lost and disoriented during this process, each of the 3's personalities and shortcomings began to reveal themselves while observing his 3 disciples. Kakashi couldn't help but test their perseverance and will as the most talented student of his generation in the Ninja Academy, and with a father who was a feared cage-level shinobi on the battlefield. The White Fang of the Leaf. Although his circumstances later changed drastically, and his life encountered a series of setbacks, the arrogance within Kakashi remained unchanged. Not just anyone was qualified to become his disciple, and just like that, time passed little by little, the sun in the sky moving from midday to sunset. It wasn't until this time that the test finally came to an end. Through his Byakugan, Liang Yue discovered that Naruto was still tied to the wooden post. Just like in the original storyline, in the following days, the group began to undertake the most basic and insignificant tasks in the ninja world under Kakashi's supervision: finding cats, searching for dogs, babysitting, weeding, picking vegetables, spraying pesticides. For an entire month, Liang Yue felt like he was dying from these tasks. In fact, it wasn't just Team Kakashi. All newly graduated ninjas had to start with these lowest level tasks. During this time, Liang Yue encountered other members of his class on the road more than once, looking equally disheveled, busy, and impatient. However, Team Kakashi soon received a decent mission, and thus, the storyline officially unfolded. A C-rank mission, escorting an old man named Tazuna back to the Land of Waves. Tazuna was a bridge-building expert, and Team Kakashi's mission was to protect his safety on the way back to the Land of Waves. According to the development in the original storyline, Liang Yue knew, of course, that this escort mission was nominally only C rank, but the actual difficulty had already reached B rank, or even higher. Tazuna was indeed a bridge-building expert, and his purpose was simply to build a bridge that would connect the isolated Land of Waves with the mainland, thereby improving the lives of the people. However, the local tyrant, or rather the local mafia, in the Land of Waves didn't want him to do that. In order to maintain their power and keep the people of the Land of Waves confined within their small territory, allowing them to exploit them, they had always regarded these bridge-building craftsmen as thorns in their side. Secretly, they had even issued a bounty on the black market to assassinate Tazuna, the old man who intended to continue building the bridge. Therefore, the C-rank mission that Kakashi and the others had taken on was no longer a simple escort on the way to the Land of Waves, and even after arriving at their destination, they might be subjected to unpredictable attacks, and the level of danger was completely different. So the C-rank mission was bound to be upgraded to B rank. Moreover, if Liang Yue remembered correctly, 2 other important supporting characters from the early stages would appear during this mission: Zabuza Mamachi and Haku. The former was a rogue ninja from the Hidden Mist village, an elite jonin who was once a member of the 7 Ninja Swordsmen, a well-known figure throughout the ninja world. The latter, Haku, although young, possessed the ice-released Kaki Genkai, was about the same age as Naruto and Sasuke, but already had the strength of a jonin. So, considering all of this B-rank mission might have to be upgraded again, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it an A-rank mission. In short, Naruto and Sasuke were indeed worthy of being the protagonists of the Naruto world. They were able to do an A-ranked mission right after leaving the village. No one else had such luck. Of course, Liang Yue was also benefiting from being there because his mentor hadn't arrived yet. According to the Hokage's words, he would have to continue to hang out with Kakashi for a while longer. Speaking of which, who exactly is my mentor? It wouldn't be Jiraiya, would it? That guy seems to be coming back for a visit in a while, but he's mainly here to teach Naruto the summoning jutsu and how to use the nine-tailed chakra. It was from that time that Naruto officially became connected to Mount Myoboku. However, if Jiraiya were to teach me, it wouldn't be bad. At least I could indirectly learn Sage Mode from him after completing the departure procedures at the gate and leaving Konoha. Liang Yue was a little absent-minded, thinking about the problem in his mind. In comparison, Naruto was like a monkey at this time, running ahead, jumping up and down, looking around, and occasionally climbing the trees by the roadside, looking around with a face full of excitement. Obviously, this was the first time he had left the village since he was a child, and he was very curious about everything outside. Sasuke and Sakura behind him, although they had never seen the world outside the village either, and were also constantly scanning their surroundings, at least on the surface, they were able to suppress their emotions. Hey, that little blondie looks very unreliable. Is he really a ninja? Tazuna looked at Naruto, who was running around like he had ADHD, as if he was having too much fun, and said to Kakashi with some dissatisfaction, "Oh, old man, don't worry, isn't there still me here? I am Hatake Kakashi, an A-rank ninja from Konoha. Safely escorting you to the land of waves is definitely not a problem. These kids are all my students, they're just tagging along to see the world, and if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have taken on this C-rank mission." Kakashi heard the words, then yawned lazily and replied in a flat tone, "Hatake Kakashi, I have heard of this name. It is said that he is a powerful ninja, but you better let your students be careful. It is not peaceful along the way," Tazuna said meaningfully at this time, and a few worries unconsciously arose on his old face. Not peaceful? What do you mean? Kakashi heard the words, his eyes suddenly narrowed, and he asked the old man next to him, It's nothing. I'm just reminding them to be careful, and not to be hurt by any ferocious beasts on the road. After all, they are still children. Let's get on the road." Looking at the old man's perfunctory appearance with a smiling face, Kakashi suddenly narrowed his eyes, but he didn't say anything. After all, the group had only just left the gates of Konoha. Even if they noticed something was wrong now, they couldn't turn back until they had definite evidence. Afterwards, the group continued on their way. Kakashi didn't bring Naruto and the others out this time for an outing. Therefore, on the way, this team leader and teacher was very responsible and began to explain to everyone some knowledge that was not in the ninja school textbooks. For example, the geography of the ninja world, the land of fire where Konoha is located, the neighboring 4 major countries of lightning, water, wind, and earth, and the basic overview of the many small countries interspersed in the middle, and so on. This bucket of fresh cheese poured down, and everyone immediately listened with a refreshing feeling and widened their horizons. Even Naruto couldn't help but be fascinated, with a look of yearning on his face. Chapter 316 Negligence. After walking for about half a day, and having a simple lunch along the way, the group continued on their journey. By this time, the village of Konoha had completely disappeared from their sight, and they were surrounded by a dense forest. The dense foliage overhead made even the forest path seem somewhat eerie. After a while, a seemingly inconspicuous puddle of water gradually appeared on the road ahead, in the middle of their path. It hasn't rained recently, has it? Looking at the small patch of water awkwardly situated in the middle of the road, Liang Yue was speechless. Unfortunately, his voice wasn't loud enough, and Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke, who were walking ahead, didn't seem to hear him. Kakashi's ears twitched. But then he quietly transmitted a message to him using chakra. Don't act. Later, after saying that, Kakashi, who had been holding the back of his head, subtly formed a few hand seals and cast a genjutsu. Then, a shadow clone replaced him, maintaining the same posture as before, and walked ahead of the group. He looked like nothing was wrong, and was even telling them about his past experiences outside, which drew gasps of surprise from Naruto, while Sasuke and Sakura behind him listened intently. Kakashi's main body then winked at Liang Yue. Seeing this, Liang Yue also created a shadow clone to follow along, while he and Kakashi hid in the shade of the trees by the roadside. You're quite vigilant. How did you notice there was something wrong with that puddle of water? Just because it hasn't rained recently? Kakashi looked at him curiously and asked. For the past year or two, I've been maintaining the Byakugan's operation with a low-intensity chakra output, although I can't use its full capabilities. But an ambush like digging a hole in the ground and filling it with water naturally can't escape my observation, Liang Yue explained as if it were a matter of course. I see. A very practical skill. But keeping the Byakugan open all the time must consume a lot of chakra, right? Kakashi scratched his nose and continued to look at Liang Yue sideways. Obviously, despite Kakashi's calm demeanor, he, who was nicknamed Flag Copy Ninja Kakashi, was still very concerned about this issue. In the online world of his previous life, Many people had tried to analyze why Kakashi, who was clearly a great genius in his early years, becoming a Jonin at the young age of 12, had later ended up in the situation of being flag copy ninja Kakashi, and had lost his previous sharpness. You should know that Kakashi was known as the copy ninja for a long time in the early and mid stages, although this was already very strong. The title of copy ninja was far inferior to that of his father, the renowned shadow-level powerhouse, Konoha White Fang. Therefore, this caused Kakashi's embarrassing situation of having a severe lack of chakra. Whenever he fought someone, he would become breathless and even pass out due to excessive chakra consumption. After only a few rounds, the Byakugan doesn't consume much chakra, much less than the Sharingan. Besides, I also have shadow clones training at home, so I can have several times more chakra whenever I need it. Just as Liang Yue finished speaking, the two ninjas who were ambushing in the puddle of water could no longer hold back and suddenly jumped out. Their weapons were a type of iron claw that could launch a serrated iron chain in a sudden surprise attack. They bound Kakashi's shadow clone in the blink of an eye, and then pulled hard, instantly dismembering the shadow clone into a pile of minced meat. With the enhancement of the Genjutsu, a large amount of blood instantly covered the entire ground. This sudden battle stunned everyone. Their mentor, who had just been talking and laughing with them and teaching them extracurricular knowledge, had suddenly turned into a pile of fragments. This change was truly caught them off guard. However, while the little guys were unprepared, the enemy did not want to give up this excellent opportunity to press their advantage. Immediately after, the two ninjas flashed again, instantly arriving behind Naruto. Despite this blonde kid usually being loud and creating his own ninjutsu, and aspiring to be Hokage or something, he was still unable to react in the real battlefield at this moment. In addition, Kakashi's death was too sudden, and Naruto, who was completely unprepared for battle, froze in place, unable to move at this critical moment. Sasuke arrived in time, throwing two shurikens that accurately pinned the iron chains in the hands of the two enemy ninjas to the ground. Then, he used taijutsu to fight back and forth with the two of them. Seeing this, Kakashi put down the kunai in his hand and looked at Liang Yue with a strange expression. Shadow clones cannot train chakra, because although shadow clones have a physical body, they are essentially made of chakra. Without human cells, they cannot extract excess energy. Of course, if it were Senjutsu, it might be a different story, because in Legends, Senjutsu chakra is cultivated by directly absorbing natural energy from the air. You haven't already found a way to absorb natural energy from the air and convert it into chakra, have you? No, just think of it as me having a natural sage body, Liang Yue said calmly, denying the other party's guess. However, in his heart, he immediately thought that he had made a mistake. He knew he had said the wrong thing. After that, Kakashi didn't continue to ask, and in a flash, he joined the battlefield in front as the two enemy ninjas abandoned Sasuke and headed straight for their employer, Tozuna. He directly intervened, breaking their necks. After throwing the two ninjas aside and quickly searching them for spoils, Kakashi stood up looking at the still somewhat dazed blonde kid. He then sarcastically said, "Sorry, Naruto, I didn't appear in time to help you, but I didn't expect that you wouldn't have any sense of retaliation when facing the enemy." Hearing this, Naruto's face stiffened, and then he showed a face full of guilt and shame. However, after saying that, Kakashi didn't give him a chance to explain or repent, and directly turned his attention to Tozuna on the other side. After a series of sharp analyses, he directly left the other party speechless. The general idea was that the two unidentified enemy ninjas were coming for you. Old man, you already have trouble on you, so our mission is not a C-rank escort mission at all, it's at least a B-rank mission. You better confess to me quickly. Hearing this, Tozuna also lowered his head with a shamed expression. Then, Kakashi looked at Naruto again and said to him indifferently, "The iron claws of the two ninjas just now were coated with poison. Although this poison is not fatal in the short term, it requires a professional medical ninja to perform bloodletting to remove the poison, so you should go back to the village, while you haven't gone too far yet." Hearing this, the shame and anger on Naruto's face were even greater, and he immediately raised the kunai in his hand. I don't want to go back. Bloodletting to remove the poison, right? There's no need for so much trouble. I'll do it myself. As he said that, the blonde kid stabbed the shuriken hard into the back of his hand. Sizzle, a sound, a stream of blood spurted out from his hand, staining the ground in front of him red. Judging by the amount of blood, he must have cut off a blood vessel. Chapter 317, Beheading Sword. Spurred by the nine-tailed chakra, Naruto's wound stopped bleeding in the blink of an eye and then healed completely. The whole process lasted only a dozen seconds, and Kakashi and Liang Yue watched this scene. Meanwhile, Sasuke and Sakura were comforting and questioning the old man. Tazuna, ordinary people's cultivated chakra definitely doesn't have this effect, otherwise the third Hokage wouldn't have aged so much. Looking at the little blonde's palm, which had become completely intact, Liang Yue couldn't help but say, let's talk about this later. Kakashi obviously didn't want to discuss these things, after all, it involved the Nine-Tails Chunkyu. Did you notice those two ninjas before? Naruto didn't seem to care about what they were saying. And he was still blaming himself for his previous cowardly performance. Yes, I saw them from the beginning, but Kakashi told me not to take action at the time. Liang Yue replied truthfully upon hearing this. I did that to test your ability to adapt in actual combat. The strength of those two ninjas was only at the level of a chunin, and regarding this matter, Chunkyu had already reminded you at the beginning. It's just that your attention was all on the scenery at the time. After checking that the wound was okay, Kakashi turned around listlessly and came to Tazuna. The client for this mission, huh? Chunkyu, did you remind us? Why don't I have any impression? Kakashi deliberately diverted your attention and told some interesting stories about himself. Oh, no wonder. So it was all arranged by him. Next, the journey of the group entered a period of calm, with no more waves during the process. Tazuna remained silent, unwilling to say anything when asked, only focusing on hurrying on his way. It wasn't until half a day later, when the group arrived at a pier fishing village by the sea and boarded a small boat to the land of waves, that the old man began to explain to everyone the general meaning was similar to the original plot, which was that evil forces were causing trouble in the land of waves. Not wanting the bridge of the land of waves to be completed to this end, they resorted to both threats and inducements, and later simply launched assassinations. The two ninjas they encountered before were just one wave of them. Speaking of this, Tazuna's expression suddenly changed, and his old face wrinkled up as he began to sell his misery to Kakashi and the others, appealing to their emotions and reasoning with them, followed by a wave of moral blackmail. An old man in his 60s or 70s started shedding tears in front of them, saying something like, "Old man, I have no choice. B-rank missions cost too much money. I'm just an old fisherman by the sea, and I can't afford it at all, so I can only resort to this last resort. I heard a long time ago that the ninjas of Konoha are all righteous, not bending their backs for 5 pecks of rice, and are good at punishing evil and promoting good. Truly the model of our ninja world. Now a group of us common people are in trouble, and we have no choice but to seek redress from the ninjas of Konoha. You are now my last hope more ever, even if I return to the land of waves safely this time. If you don't care about me, I will still be killed by those people, anyway." Something like that. In short, Sasuke and Sakura were just two newly graduated students with no social experience. Naruto was even more impulsive, acting recklessly without considering the consequences, and Kakashi, in order not to lose face in front of his students, had no choice but to reluctantly agree to the subsequent mission request, that is, to protect the safety of Tazuna's family for free until the bridge in the land of waves is completed. Before, when facing the ambush of those two hostile ninjas, he was unable to counterattack and felt that he had lost face. At this time, he planned to regroup and regain his ground in the dangers that might appear next. Therefore, since landing, the little blonde has been exceptionally alert along the way, and his hands have always been holding kunai as he walked. He kept scanning back and forth on both sides of the road with his eyes. It has to be said that although the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan is not as concrete as that of the Uchiha or the Hyuga clan, which can directly use the eyes as an external symbol, the bloodline inheritance of the Uzumaki clan is not much weaker than these two compared to other ninjas. They have much more chakra, a strong body, the ability to recover from injuries, excellent reconnaissance ability, sensory ability, and the ability to control chakra, as well as the Uzumaki clan's natural ability to suppress tailed beasts, etc., coupled with the sealing secret techniques passed down from ancient times in the Uzumaki clan. All of this gives ninjas with this clan's bloodline many innate advantages. That's right, they had only just walked for a short while. Naruto, who was carefully paying attention to the surrounding movements, discovered the traces of the enemy on the side of the road almost only a little slower than Liang Yue, who had been using a low-intensity Byakugan. "There's a situation. Be careful," the little blonde suddenly shouted, startling everyone at once. At the same time, he leaped forward quickly, and then vigorously flung the kunai in his hand, shooting it into the bushes on the side of the road. Immediately afterward, Naruto's expression changed slightly, and his gaze shifted again, looking in another direction. "I can find you even if you run over here. Hey!" As he spoke, he shot out another kunai in his hand again. Unfortunately, Naruto's series of alert actions, apart from almost shooting a Snow White rabbit and scaring it into paralysis, caused almost no wave. Sakura behind him thought he was just being nervous, So she punched him angrily and told him to calm down quickly. However, Kakashi's poker face became serious at this time, pointing to the rabbit that had fallen to the ground and saying bluntly, "This kind of rabbit is called a snow rabbit, and it only appears in winter when the weather is cold and the days are short. Now it's summer, so this kind of rabbit can only be a product of artificial breeding." It seems that Naruto's judgment is correct. The enemy is nearby. It should have been exchanged by someone using the body replacement technique as a substitute. As soon as Kakashi's words fell, the few people in the field suddenly became serious subconsciously. They formed a circle with each other as support, vaguely back to back, and looked at the surroundings warily. Buzz. Just at this moment, accompanied by a burst of violent ear-piercing sound, an object suddenly flew out from behind the dense branches not far away like a large saw blade several sizes larger. It came aggressively, scraping out a sharp friction sound in the air. It spun rapidly as it cut towards the crowd. Upon seeing this, Kakashi immediately called everyone to dodge. Sasuke and Sakura quickly drove Tazuna to jump to the side, and Naruto and Kakashi also flew away one after another, leaving only Liang Yue standing there without moving. "Chunky, be careful." Sasuke looked back and immediately shouted a warning, and the others' expressions changed drastically upon seeing this. But then, something surprising happened to them. The saw blade that was originally spinning rapidly and cutting towards them suddenly slowed down, as if it had inexplicably lost its original force, and the entire saw blade seemed to be immersed in deep water. Each time it turned, it would rapidly decay and decelerate, and its originally blurred shape suddenly became clear. This turned out to be a giant sword with a somewhat bizarre shape. In the end, the knife even stopped steadily in midair in front of Liang Yue, and then he calmly grasped the hilt. Swish! With a light flick, a crescent-shaped knife mark immediately appeared on the ground in front of him. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 Wind. The Leaf's attraction technique. Accompanied by a slightly hoarse voice, a man wearing a white bandage mask suddenly flashed into view, leaping out from the branches and quickly landing on the road ahead. He wore camouflage pants on his lower body, while his upper body was simply clad in suspenders. Behind him, not far away, there happened to be a lake. After hearing the man's words, Liang Yue raised an eyebrow, his gaze involuntarily shifting to Kakashi beside him. Kakashi, at this moment, simply extended a finger and lightly flicked the greatsword in Liang Yue's hand, then expressionlessly looked at the man in front of him and said, "The executioner's blade, you are Zabuza Mamachi, a rogue ninja from the Hidden Mist Village's 7 ninja swordsmen." "Oh, so it's Kakashi Hatake, the Leaf Village's famous copy ninja, with a Sharingan." After a round of mutual flattery, the atmosphere in the arena gradually became tense. Kakashi then stepped forward, shielding Liang Yue and the others behind him. He solemnly warned Naruto, who was eager to try, "This person is not in the same league as the two we encountered this morning, and you guys can't handle him in your current state. Stay back." After speaking, he gave Liang Yue a look. The meaning was probably to have him protect them. Immediately afterward, Kakashi solemnly lifted the ninja headband that had been covering his eye. On his fair skin, a clear scar ran across his eye socket, and as his eyelid opened, a bright red Sharingan with 3 tomo was revealed. Seeing Kakashi reveal his signature, Zabuza Mamachi across from him took a deep look at Liang Yue, then flashed, instantly moving onto the surface of the lake as a ninja from the Hidden Mist Village. Fighting in the lake obviously gave him an advantage at this moment. Zabuza Mamachi formed a hand seal with both hands, chanting a few words from behind his bandages. After a simple hand sign, a thick fog instantly began to rise around the lake and in the forest. In just a few breaths, the fog became layered, obscuring everyone's vision, and the visibility began to decrease. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Tazuna behind him unconsciously stood back to back, looking around warily. "Be careful," Kakashi solemnly reminded the others, then directly stepped onto the lake's surface. Seeing this, Liang Yue twitched his lips, then spread his arms. In an instant, an invisible wind suddenly began to blow, centered on himself and the 4 people behind him, constantly swirling and spreading around. Gradually, the wind force began to gradually increase, the air current surged, and the leaves swayed. Seeing this, Kakashi turned his head in surprise and glanced at him. Then, he continued to walk towards Zabuza Mamachi in front, whose face suddenly changed. "Chunkyu, you can use wind-style ninjutsu." Sasuke beside him looked surprised. As the last descendant of the Uchiha clan and the son of the clan leader, his family education was naturally very good. It was no wonder that Sasuke would feel surprised at this moment. After all, the fact that the Hyuga clan's chakra could not be used for ninjutsu is a well-known secret among families with any insight in the ninja world. I don't know any wind-style ninjutsu, but using chakra to create airflow within a certain range is not difficult, and this ability itself has no power at most. It can only be considered a small gust of wind. Oh, as they spoke, two bursts of killing intent suddenly erupted. Liang Yue slightly turned his head. The one adult and three children behind him were deeply shocked by this aura. Even the hands holding the kunai began to tremble uncontrollably. Bang! At this moment, Zabuza Mamachi across from them quickly made several hand seals, and the executioner's blade in Liang Yue's hand suddenly turned into a puff of white smoke in the blink of an eye. It appeared in the other party's hand at the same time. Zabuza's figure blurred for a moment, instantly turning into two gray shadows, flying towards Kakashi from two directions. Ding! The executioner's blade and the kunai separated with a single touch. Subsequently, Zabuza Mamachi himself continued to attack Kakashi, his eyes full of killing intent, staring intently at his every move. The other shadow clone directly attacked Liang Yue and the others. Obviously, Zabuza's intention at this time was very clear, which was to use the safety of the few of them as a restraint, forcing Kakashi to fight distractedly, thereby revealing flaws. However, what he didn't expect was that Kakashi never looked back once. Then bang! Accompanied by a short muffled sound, his shadow clone was also immediately turned into white smoke and collapsed. The one who made the move was naturally Liang Yue. Faced with the other party's shadow clone's attack, he simply used an attraction technique to trip one of the other party's feet. Taking advantage of the other party's stunned moment, he took a big step forward and slapped down on the head, directly ending the battle. This battle was not exciting, but the use of skills was very ingenious. Immediately, Zabuza Mamachi, who had already received the memory of his shadow clone, was stunned at this time. Kakashi seized the fleeting opportunity. He pounced forward, and under a barrage of attacks with kunai in his hand, he directly left a deep bloodstain on the other party's arm. The two then separated again. A genius from the Leaf Village, able to instantly kill my shadow clone at such a young age, is indeed very unusual. Saying this, Zabuza took a deep look at Liang Yue not far away, then looked at the wound on his arm, which was constantly bleeding. He narrowed his eyes slightly, used the hiding mist technique again, mixed into it, and then decisively ran away. He couldn't beat Kakashi in a one-on-one fight. He wanted to attack the enemy with a weak, but he found that the other side was not weak either, and he was also injured. Now the battle situation was obviously at a disadvantage. Therefore, decisively retreating was naturally the smartest choice for the other party. Kakashi looked around with his Sharingan, and after confirming that the other party had not stayed behind, he quickly returned to the shore. How did the other party know about the name of the attraction technique? On the way, Liang Yue looked at Kakashi next to him with some surprise and asked, "Ninjutsu, isn't it something for people to learn? Besides, you just saw it, unexpectedly." The effect of this attraction technique is still very crucial. It can be used to block hidden weapons and restrain opponents, so after the third Hokage mastered it, he passed this ninjutsu down 2 years ago. But don't worry, the only ones who know this ninjutsu now, besides the few little guys around you, there are only a few elite jonin in Konoha village, and then, maybe the higher-ups of your Hyuga family also know it. In short, it's because its effect is not small, so it will be remembered by ninjas from other ninja villages. By the way, what was the deal with that wind-style ninjutsu you used earlier? Kakashi scratched his white hair at this time, and then asked with great interest. Great wind technique. It's just a semi-finished product. Other than being able to blow wind, it has no attack power, but the characteristic is that it can be used as long as there is chakra. Liang Yue replied with a calm expression. Upon hearing this great wind technique is actually an extension of the wind control art recorded in the everlasting spring technique, or rather, a variant usage. This wind control art was originally a movement technique, a state-type spell. After casting it, the recipient's body will be surrounded by wind, which can increase movement speed and flexibility. This was originally just an entry-level spell in the cultivation system, but if it is placed in the current ninjutsu system, it is still very valuable. At least, its use does not require any specific wind-style chakra. Even the Hyuga family's chakra can be used. Sounds like it's very interesting. Next, we may have to stay in this wave country for a while. Why don't you teach it to me? How about it? Kakashi looked at Liang Yue with a thick face and a smile in his eyes. You've already mastered enough ninjutsu, right? Copy ninja, do you want to learn something without attack power too? Liang Yue heard this and immediately said with some amusement, no, attack power doesn't mean it's useless. Just like the hiding mist technique just now, it doesn't have much power itself, but the effect is very good, and it can also have a surprisingly effective effect in certain situations. Alright, I'll teach you if you want to learn. Thank you. It's really comfortable to be your substitute teacher. Chapter 319 10 Kills with Spiritual Arrows. In the following time, Liang Yue and the others entered a period of peaceful transition after successfully escorting Tazuna back home. The bridge construction project in the Land of Waves also began to steadily advance. The entire project has now entered the final stage, the connecting passage between the Land of Waves, this isolated small country, and the outside world is about to be completed. However, beneath this seemingly stable situation, there are still hidden crises, those vested interests who have always been committed to doing whatever they want in the Land of Waves, and ruthlessly exploiting the working people, will certainly not sit idly by and watch their years of management being damaged. Therefore, as the completion time of the bridge gradually approaches, even the most dull-witted bridge workers have already vaguely sensed an atmosphere of impending disaster. It's like a cultivator who, after painstaking cultivation, overcoming hardships, and finally breaking through the shackles, advances to a higher level, only to be struck by a thunder tribulation in the next moment. And all the tribulations that involve personnel and karma can be collectively referred to as human tribulation. The second husband of this old man's daughter, a hero who protected the safety of the poor, died because of a certain black force. It is said that the other party's methods were very cruel at the time, and it was the kind of public execution under such circumstances, taking precautions, taking the initiative, attacking the enemy unprepared, and striking first is undoubtedly the best response strategy. After all, ninjas are not a profession of integrity. As a result, when Liang Yue gave Kakashi his ideas and suggestions, he received Kakashi's stern criticism. The reason is that it will corrupt the children. WTF, this is clearly what your ninja school textbook teaches. Okay, eliminating difficulties in advance, eliminating threats, and escorting the mission are not the most normal ninja practices. Unfortunately, Kakashi didn't know whether he was out of his mind at this time, or whether he had to maintain the noble code and sentiment of a ninja in front of his students. In short, things were delayed like this until one day a month later, a group of workers who were working on the bridge were all knocked down without warning, and Zabuza Mamachi reappeared beside them followed by a masked boy. After learning about this, Kakashi hurriedly took them and Tazuna to the bridge. As a result, as soon as he turned his head, Tazuna's daughter and grandson were kidnapped by the black forces of the Land of Waves on the Misty Sea. When Liang Yue and others were still standing on the bridge, confronting Zabuza and the two not far away, a group of punks with katanas suddenly appeared by the way. They also pushed a mother and son to the front and threatened them to surrender. Seeing this, Liang Yue immediately turned his gaze to Kakashi. With a hint of teasing in his eyes, Kakashi twitched a corner of his eyes twice, and after scratching his white hair, he turned his gaze elsewhere. While they were confronting each other, a short, fat, somewhat bald, but well-dressed black boss, leaning on a cane, stepped out of the crowd. He stood in the middle of the two groups, adjusted the sunglasses on the bridge of his nose, and had a confident smile on his lips. This funny guy, it seems that he wants to negotiate with them. Unfortunately, just as the middle-aged man was about to speak, Liang Yue instantly raised his hands at the fingertips of his 10 fingers. In an instant, rays of blue-green brilliance shot out. It was his self-created spirit arrow technique. The speed was very fast, almost one after another, with a strong penetrating force, dragging a spiral tail flame. In an instant, it had crossed the distance between the two sides. It directly turned the short, fat black boss into a sieve, and then the power did not diminish, and in the explosion of blood, it plunged into the crowd. These spirit arrows seemed a little chaotic, but the whole process of shooting was cleverly avoiding the mother and son in front of the crowd. Puff puff puff. Immediately afterwards, accompanied by a series of muffled sounds, these 10 spirit arrow techniques suddenly exploded in the crowd. In an instant, it turned into hundreds of thousands of disordered, blooming tiny spirit needles, directly piercing everyone around into a sieve in the flying blood mist. Only the mother and son in front were not harmed in the slightest because of Liang Yue's deliberate control. At this time, they were huddled together, squatting on the ground, shivering. Zabuza Mamachi and the masked boy who was suspected to be Haku were not harmed because they were far away. It's just that at this time, the two of them were obviously stunned by the sudden change. The body was stiff, and the eyes were wide open. They obviously didn't expect that Liang Yue would suddenly take action like this beforehand, and the means are so sharp. For a time, they were a little unable to recover. You go? Anyway, it's just taking on tasks to make a living. I don't want to embarrass you. If you really need money, just take some from the black boss's house. Saying that, Liang Yue ignored the two of them, walked straight to the mother and son opposite, and then pulled them back, who were a little difficult to move. Looking up, Zabuza and Haku had quickly dived away, and Sasuke, Naruto, Sakura, and others had changed their eyes when they looked at him. The expression was complicated and unclear, horrified, dazed, and there seemed to be a trace of fear in it. Kakashi had a solemn and silent face compared to the few greenhorns around him. He had already seen the cruelty of war on the battlefield, and he was not surprised by the death of people. It's just that Liang Yu's shot was too decisive and sudden before, which really made him a little caught off guard. Don't look, you may think that I am cruel, but in the situation just now, there is no better way saying that. Liang Yu handed the mother and son in his hands to Tazuna, who was already a little frightened on the other side. That spirit arrow technique, can it be used like this? Kakashi narrowed his eyes at this time, and subconsciously looked at Liang Yu's pair of white palms. It's just a little hurt, and the chakra consumed in an instant is a bit too much. Hearing this, Liang Yu raised his somewhat red and swollen fingers and shook them in front of the other party. What I want to ask is not only the problem of 10 fingers coming out together, but also, have you researched the method of remotely controlling the spirit arrow technique? While waving his hand at the crowd, and calling everyone to leave here before the smell of blood on the opposite side came over. Kakashi did not forget to continue to inquire with him. This is related to the control ability of chakra. And the farther away, the more difficult it is to control. In fact, Liang Yu also began to have some experience and grasp in the operation of the spirit arrow technique after the level of spiritual power cultivation in the body returned to the innate level. In addition, strong mental power and spiritual consciousness are also indispensable. Chapter 320 Direct Promotion to Chunin. After returning to Konoha from the Land of Waves, Liang Yu once again entered a period of leisure. Actually, it wasn't just him. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and the group of students who had just graduated from the Ninja Academy were mostly the same, because in the coming time, the main event on their schedule would be the Chunin selection exams, which were being held in Konoha this year at the same time. For Liang Yu, this was also the main event for him. Of course, Naruto and the others didn't know about this yet, but Kakashi and the other team leaders had already received the news and were consciously leaving plenty of preparation time for their students. Take the current Team 7, for example. On weekdays, besides taking Sasuke and the others to do some insignificant tasks in Konoha village, such as weeding, walking dogs, and harvesting wheat, he no longer arranged any tasks that required going out to perform during this period. Liang Yu still hung out with Kakashi and the others. The mentor that the village arranged for him was still nowhere to be seen, his whereabouts unknown. In addition, it is worth mentioning that not long after the mission in the Land of Waves ended and he returned to Konoha, perhaps it was because Kakashi had reported the process and details of this mission to the Hokage. It was probably also because his performance in this mission was too conspicuous. Therefore, Liang Yu had been specially recruited at this time. Then, he officially became a member of the Konoha Anbu. Moreover, he was granted the title of Chunin in advance, as well as the symbol representing the Chunin status, a military green special operations vest. This saved Liang Yu a lot of trouble otherwise, if he really had to participate in the Chunin exams with Naruto, Sasuke, and the others, not to mention whether this would delay his mission to stop Orochimaru's Konoha Crush plan. Liang Yu would even have trouble forming a team at that time. If even one of the three chooses to withdraw, the entire group is considered a failure. But who would Liang Yu team up with? Could it be that he should form a team of one? In addition, this so-called Chunin exam is actually very boring in Liang Yu's eyes. Even Gaara, who can already use part of Shukaku's abilities and has almost infinite chakra, is already a bit of a child's play in front of him. After all, Liang Yu has now lived in the Naruto world for a full 6 years. His originally powerful body is also gradually unsealing and returning to his main body as time goes by. To be specific, the total training time in this Naruto world is 15 years. 6 years is 2/5 of it. According to this ratio, it can be said that Liang Yu has now returned to the stage of that inhuman creature. Liang Yu identity, martial arts practitioner, sealed, 9th level of cultivation, internal strength, 157,600, sealed, magic power, 421,925, sealed, 213,796, available, strength, 430, sealed, 182, available, agility, 460, sealed, 194, available, constitution, 440, sealed, 186, available, energy, 1050, sealed, 520, available. Although this data is still a considerable distance from his peak period, but at least, Liang Yu doesn't have to be as low-key, forbearing, and trembling as before. Why don't I sneak out for a walk after participating in the mission to protect Konoha? Anyway, after this mission is over, I don't need to be confined to Konoha anymore. However, in this broken ninja world, there doesn't seem to be any ready-made wild opportunities, right? There's a wild-tailed beast, but after leaving this world, I don't know if that thing can still exist. Moreover, for me, the biggest good thing in this Naruto world is actually the ninjutsu system itself, and the endless stream of mysterious ninjutsu, but almost all of these can be found in Konoha. As for the so-called sage arts, that would involve the 3 great sacred grounds, but that kind of place can't be found by simply running around blindly, so it's better to sit in Konoha village and wait for opportunities to come to my door. Although this is a bit passive, at least I won't miss the turning points in the plot. However, speaking of which, is the mentor that the village found for me Jiraiya? If it is, then everything will be easy to handle. At least I have the opportunity to learn sage arts, and I can also get a big toad as a bonus. If not, are they fooling me? Hey Chunkyu, what are you thinking about? Just as Liang Yue was leaning lazily on the tree trunk, staring at the sky in a daze, Naruto, who had just finished his battle practice with Sasuke and lost miserably, suddenly waved his palm in front of him. I was just thinking about something. What's wrong? Looking at the little yellow-haired boy in front of him, covered in dirt and footprints, Liang Yue suddenly woke up. Speaking of which, although he has now joined the Konoha Enbu, the Hokage has not deliberately arranged any tasks for him, but instead let Liang Yue do what he usually does. Just don't expose his Enbu identity. In short, although Liang Yue has now joined the Enbu, he is actually just an outsider and has no specific position. In addition to being able to receive a considerable salary, the biggest benefit is that he can read some information and ninjutsu in the Hokage building that he did not have permission to see before. So, on the second day after accepting this position, Liang Yue almost unhesitatingly went to the Anbu's library and looked through the content about sealing techniques. In fact, as early as when he was summoned by the Hokage and promised a reward for the spirit arrow technique, Liang Yue wanted to learn sealing techniques. It's just that he was too young at that time, and he had just entered the Hokage's field of vision under such circumstances. It was definitely impossible to get what he wanted by rashly asking the old man for secret techniques of the level of sealing techniques, and if he didn't do it well, he would be deliberately targeted and monitored. Furthermore, people value self-knowledge. Even if he is a transmigrator, he can't be too rash compared to sealing techniques. Making the choice to learn multiple shadow clone technique would be more reassuring in all aspects. Why can't I practice my spirit arrow technique well? Naruto scratched his yellow hair at this time, and asked him embarrassedly. However, it's no wonder that he would be embarrassed. Although Liang Yue had already handed over this ninjutsu to them not long after he created the spirit arrow technique, but so many years have passed now, and this little yellow-haired boy still hasn't learned it. Originally, Naruto had already given up, thinking that he was not the material, but since Liang Yue had played a trick of firing 10 fingers in a row in the Land of Waves before, showing the ferocious power in front of several people, spirit arrow technique has re-entered their field of vision. Even Sakura, who was originally not within Liang Yue's small group, came over a few days ago with some embarrassment to ask for advice, and the implication was that she wanted to learn this ninjutsu. In this regard, Liang Yue did not hide anything, but he threw the task of teaching to Sasuke. Sakura was naturally overjoyed when she heard the words, but Sasuke was a little reluctant. But after being taught a lesson by Liang Yue and explaining to him the reasons for reviewing the past and learning new things, and understanding his own shortcomings in the process of teaching others, Sasuke finally took over the task. Chapter 321 Spiritual Archery, Revised. You can't master it. This is probably related to your personality, and also, Naruto, your control precision over chakra is still a bit lacking. Looking at the little blondie with a puzzled face in front of him, Liang Yue was actually a little helpless. The key is that the other party is still too young now and hasn't even started trying to understand the power of the 9 tails in his body. If we wait a few more months, until Konoha's staunch direct member, Jiraiya, returns, then the current explanations of insufficient control and precision will no longer be a problem, because by that time, Kurama will officially appear. After learning to communicate with him, Naruto's strength will inevitably rise to higher levels. It can't be said that there's no way, but you can try to be flexible. Liang Yue sighed softly as he looked at the little blondie. How can I be flexible? Naruto's spirits lifted immediately upon hearing this, and then he looked at him with a face full of surprise and asked. Just then, Kakashi also walked over from a distance. Seeing this, Sasuke and Sakura, who were originally practicing on the side, also quickly gathered around. Your weakness is actually just that you can't temporarily complete the fine manipulation of chakra within your body, but you can completely bring this process outside your body to carry it out. As Liang Yue spoke, he stretched out his palm towards Naruto and gestured in front of him. Manipulate the chakra of the spirit arrow technique outside the body. Naruto's eyes lit up upon hearing this, and even Sasuke and Sakura, who had just approached, were somewhat surprised upon hearing this, and their eyes immediately shone with excitement. However, in this way, your spirit arrow technique will lose its surprise attack effect and thus transform into a strong offensive ninjutsu. On this basis, you can also inject more chakra into this ninjutsu to increase its power, and you don't have to worry about causing too much pressure on the meridians in your body because of this. This is quite compatible with your Uzumaki clan's chakra reserves. Looking at Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, who were already unconsciously lost in thought, Liang Yue then closed his mouth and let them think for themselves immediately afterwards. Just as Kakashi slowly walked over from a distance and hadn't had time to speak, Naruto suddenly raised his head, his eyes full of determination. Immediately, he looked solemn, raised a finger, and silently circulated his chakra. In an instant, a stream of blue-white energy suddenly poured out from his hand, and then quickly gathered at his fingertips in a complex spiral shape. In the process, a sharp aura was slowly increasing, making people dare not underestimate it. After about 5 or 6 seconds, a shuttle-shaped special chakra energy, slightly larger than an egg, had taken shape, accompanied by Naruto's low shout. This spirit arrow technique immediately shot diagonally into the sky. The big tree above everyone's heads was immediately affected, and a hole as big as a bucket was directly drilled into the dense canopy, with branches and leaves shattering and branches flying. However, Sasuke and the others' attention was completely not on this, and their eyes were still fixed on the large chakra spirit arrow. It could be seen that it was flying into the sky with a strong penetrating force, like a shooting star, pulling out a long spiral tail flame behind it. Finally, with a bang, it directly exploded in the sky more than 100 meters away, turning into a scattering of flying lines and slowly falling. The chakra lines looked soft and weak, with no strength, obviously because of insufficient control, and did not exert the original power. But this was still a huge improvement for Naruto. Accompanied by the scattering and flying fallen leaves, the little blondie immediately jumped up excitedly, raised his hands high, and cheered loudly. I finally succeeded. Liang Yue smiled as he looked at Naruto, who was somewhat beside himself. He wasn't too surprised that Naruto could master the externally released spirit arrow technique to this extent on his first try. After all, Naruto had been desperately practicing this move for the past 3 or 4 years. Now that he had changed direction, it was natural to achieve some results. I didn't expect that he would master this move in this way. Kakashi looked at Naruto with some surprise at this time, and then looked at the hole chiseled out of the canopy above his head, reached out and scratched his face, and a trace of complexity flashed in the only eye that was exposed. How is it, Teacher Kakashi? Am I amazing? Sakura, Sasuke, Chunkyu, the little blondie was jumping around with a face full of ecstasy at this time, constantly showing off to the few people, causing Sasuke and Sakura next to him to be speechless and disdainful. Actually, there are still many places to improve. I know, it must be that the last explosion was not well controlled, so it's not very powerful, right? I'll pay attention to it in the future. Chunkyu, it's not just the last explosion. What I mean is that now that you don't need to manipulate chakra in your body, you can be bolder. Change the gathering point of chakra from your fingertips to your palm, so that it will be more stable to control. Is that so? Naruto's eyes lit up again upon hearing Liang Yue's words, and then he stretched out his palm. In a moment, a shuttle-shaped spirit arrow technique as big as a bowl had been completed. For a time, a strong wind was swept up, stirring up ripples on the grass, and the shining chakra began to illuminate the surrounding. Swoosh, accompanied by a sharp whistling sound, the large spirit arrow technique instantly flew into the sky. The towering tree above his head could no longer withstand such destruction, and the entire upper half was directly shattered. After flying into the sky, the spirit arrow technique seemed to have undergone some changes, or rather, it may have been due to Naruto's improper control. The original arrow-shaped head, plus the spiral tail flame structure, had now completely turned into a sharp drill bit. With a sharp whistling sound, it flew over half of Konoha in the sky, and finally exploded with a bang like a scattering firework. It instantly attracted the attention of the entire village. Everyone, wow, it's so powerful. Naruto looked at his somewhat red and wrinkled palms at this time, and the excitement on his small face could not be concealed. Sasuke next to him also unconsciously raised his palm, his eyes flashing again and again. Actually, it still has room for continued improvement. You were a little too forceful before. If you can take it back a little, appropriately reduce the power of this technique. And then as he spoke, Liang Yue raised his palms just like that, under the gaze of a few people, one palm with his left hand, one palm with his right hand, one palm with his left hand, one palm with his right hand, made continuous attacking gestures forward. Upon seeing this, Naruto immediately clenched his fist and slammed his palm, and then raised his hands to continue trying. Cough cough. Wait a minute, let's temporarily study this ninjutsu here, and also, if you want to practice in the future, it's best to start with a smaller spirit arrow technique. The movement just now is too loud, and it's easy to create a bad influence in the village. Kakashi quickly stopped him upon seeing this. Okay, Teacher Kakashi. I was actually joking just now. This large spirit arrow technique consumes a bit too much chakra. I can't use it now even if I want to. Naruto scratched the back of his head and smiled at this time. Kakashi nodded upon hearing this, and then opened his mouth and said, well, you wasted at least half of your chakra just now, so, in the future, Naruto, you can also try to work hard from the perspective of saving it. Okay, enough idle talk. I have something to announce now. Chapter 322 Chunin Exam Selection. The Chunin Selection Exams? If I pass, I can become a Chunin. Hearing this news from Kakashi, Naruto's face lit up with joy. I guess this little blonde brat must have just learned a new ninjutsu and wants to show off. That's right, I've already signed up all three of you, and the preliminary selection format is that all three members of a team must participate. If one person forfeits, the entire team will be disqualified. Kakashi said this with his hands on his hips, as if it were obvious. Hearing Sasuke's words, Naruto fell into deep thought. Before, Chunkyu even specially treated us to barbecue. Sakura reminded him from the side. Oh, so that's what it was for. Then Chunkyu doesn't need to take the exam, so awesome. Also, it's not just our Konoha, the Chunin selection exams of other countries in the ninja world will all be held in our Konoha this time. When the time comes, you should be able to see many peers from other villages. It's a good opportunity to observe the level of others. Kakashi reminded them helplessly. Needless to say, our Konoha is definitely the best. Our team is definitely the strongest. What do you say, Chunkyu? You still lack practical experience. Facing Naruto's optimism, Liang Yue immediately poured a bucket of cold water on him. But the Land of Waves mission last time, during the last mission, basically only Kakashi-sensei and I took action. After finishing training with Team 7, Kakashi rarely treated them to Chiriko ramen again. After finishing the meal, the sun on the horizon began to slowly set. As soon as he entered the Hyuga clan's gate, the Hyuga clan leader, not knowing where he got the news from, directly called Liang Yue into a room alone. He inquired about the matter of the spirit arrow technique ascending to the sky. After learning that this was just taking the operation of the spirit arrow technique outside the body and increasing the chakra input, Hyuga Hayashi's pair of Byakugan eyes suddenly flashed with a bright light. Afterwards, the Hyuga clan leader encouraged Liang Yue and then let him leave, walking slowly towards his own small courtyard. As soon as he turned the corner of the alley, he found a person standing in front of his courtyard gate. It was Hinata. The little girl was holding a food box in her hand at this moment. Hinata, Chunkyu, you're back. Why are you waiting here? These past few days, I've been busy with missions and also being brought to the house by Kurenai-sensei for guidance. I haven't seen Chunkyu. Today, I wanted to come and have dinner with Chunkyu. And Chunkyu, have you eaten yet? Not yet. As soon as I got back, the clan leader called me into the room and asked me about some things. I'm actually hungry right now. This box smells so good. What dishes are there? They're all Chunkyu's favorite. Hinata knows me best. Let's go, let's talk inside. He putting his arm around Hinata's soft little waist, he came to the room. Even though it was his second meal, with Liang Yue's physical fitness and spiritual power cultivation, even if he multiplied this amount by 10, it wouldn't matter to him. With a turn of spiritual energy, the food could directly turn into nutrients and residue in his stomach. During the meal, the two talked about the Chunin exams, interspersed with some interesting things that happened during missions. The atmosphere seemed very warm between glances, from the way this little girl held her chopsticks. Liang Yue keenly noticed a trace of abnormality. Taking Hinata's little hand over to look at it, he saw that her palms and fingers were covered in bruises, and some joints were already peeling. After inquiring, he learned that Hinata had recently been allowed by her father, the Hyuga clan leader, to learn profound gentle fist techniques, and she was currently practicing 8 trigrams empty palm. She had to do missions and work hard at cultivation on weekdays, so naturally, it would be very hard. Seeing this, Liang Yue got up and went back to the house. When he came out again, he had 2 bottles of ancient fruit wine in his hand. This is wine. But father said that underage people are not allowed to drink alcohol. Hinata's face was red at this moment. Seeing the things in his hand, she hesitated and said softly, "This is medicinal wine. I accidentally obtained it during a mission in the Land of Waves. It's very effective. As long as you drink a cup, the injuries on your hands will be healed by tomorrow." Saying that, Liang Yue uncorked one of the bottles and took 2 cups from the side, pouring 2 small cups, and then sat beside Hinata, pushing one of the cups in front of her. Try drinking a little to taste it. The taste of this wine is probably similar to juice. Looking at the little girl holding the cup in both hands and then sipping it into her mouth little by little, Liang Yue couldn't help but smile gently. Speaking of which, since coming to the Naruto world, he hadn't had a drink for quite some time. This time, it could be considered a good excuse to take half a cup since his body became smaller. Many of Liang Yue's habits had to be corrected. After all, Konoha was a highly militarized town. Don't look at the peacefulness on the surface, with people living and working in peace, but secretly, it was also filled with various unknown stories and ugliness like the Anbu, the Root, and sometimes the Third Hokage would personally come down and sneak around the village with a crystal ball. Under such circumstances, it was really not appropriate for him to let himself go. However, after living here for more than 6 years, Liang Yue had already gotten used to it. Moreover, because he was in the Hyuga clan's prestigious family, things were convenient in many ways. It was just that in the following time, the simple and fulfilling rhythm of life like before in the ninja school would be gone forever, and the Naruto plot would officially open. The first to bear the brunt was Orochimaru's Konoha crush plan during the final stage of the Chunin exams. In addition, compared to Liang Yue's methodical and improving situation, Teacher Shizuka, Senior Siko, Xiao Zhao, and Yang Yue, who in the outpost world were a little different, there was no way around it. He himself could be considered to have grown up in a completely new environment since childhood, with people to accompany him. The elder sisters were purely accompanying Liang Yue, enduring the time and cultivating hard. Now, a full 6 years had passed. Approximately starting 2 years ago, the women had gradually left, temporarily returning to reality, and Takagi Yuriko was the first to not be able to hold on. There was no way around it. Who let this wife person and be the oldest among a group of elder sisters, whom I can't even count as the oldest but as a normal human being? After coming out of the apocalypse world, Yuriko was already in her 30s now. She had wasted several years in the outpost world. Plus Liang Yue's previous few experiences in the heavens and worlds. Adding these together, Yuriko was now definitely over 40 years old. Fortunately, age was not a problem for Liang Yue and the others, especially when Yuriko successfully broke through to the innate realm and was infused with a heaven and earth spiritual energy in the outpost world, thus realizing a transformation. Her entire appearance and body had returned to the appearance of just over 20 years old. However, after breaking through the innate and then consolidating her cultivation, this sister finally chose to go to reality temporarily. Not long after her, Teacher Shizuka and big sister Minami Rika left with Yuriko. However, surprisingly, Teacher Shizuka was actually the first to advance to the innate realm among this group of village sisters. If it weren't for waiting for her good girlfriend Minami Rika, this beautiful school doctor could have gone out early. Then, it was the Takagi Saya, Busuji Masiko, Xiao Zhao, and Yang Yue quartet. They advanced to the innate realm almost simultaneously. The process was unusually smooth. However, this was almost nonsense with Liang Yue, who had cultivated to the innate realm twice in a row, guiding them by the side, and spiritual medicine to assist them. It would be difficult not to break through. In comparison, the remaining elf princess Arwen, the giant eagle clan's Rachel, and Nana had somewhat special situations, and the three of them planned to stay in the outpost world all the time. Nana was because she was young. The purpose of not leaving the outpost world was to seize the time to enhance her cultivation. In addition, she also had to seize the time to grow up. Arwen and Rachel, on the other hand, were purely because of their racial advantages. They didn't care about these few years at all. Moreover, the path that the two of them were currently majoring in was the magic side, and martial arts was only an auxiliary for them since it wasn't the mainstream path among the crowd. Liang Yue couldn't give them too much guidance, so they had to rely on themselves to spend time and painstakingly research. Chapter 323: A Group of Killers. After finishing dinner, Liang Yue sent Hinata, whose face was already flushed from drinking 2 small cups of ancient fruit wine, back to her courtyard, leaving a shadow clone on the ground to keep watch. Liang Yue entered the basement and began his nightly routine of training. The Chunin selection exams were of great importance, and Liang Yue had been preparing for them for 6 full years. With the main event approaching, he naturally couldn't afford to be careless. In the following days, the number of ninja from other villages gradually increased, and the Chunin exams arrived as scheduled. However, after observing for the past few days, Liang Yue had not been able to find any trace of Orochimaru. However, the first thing to be clear about was that the other party's Konoha crush plan would definitely not be cancelled. After all, there was a system mission involved. Not being able to find the other party's whereabouts could only mean that Liang Yue had underestimated the heroes of the world. Hey Chunkyu, do you know what this preliminary exam is about? After escorting Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Hinata into the Ninja Academy building, and as they were walking towards the second floor, the blonde kid suddenly leaned close to Liang Yue's ear and asked furtively, "It's just that this guy Naruto didn't seem to know how to whisper, and as soon as he opened his mouth, he immediately attracted the attention of everyone around him. Your first exam will be held in this classroom, so it should be a written test. By the way Naruto, have you reviewed the knowledge in the textbook for this test?" Some people in the village seemed to finally remember that Liang Yue was also a chunin, and also belonged to the Anbu, so they assigned him a task to help proctor the exam. Incidentally, he was also to monitor any situations that might occur during the exam, and report any abnormalities at any time as one of his few missions since joining the Anbu. Liang Yue naturally had no objections and readily agreed. A written test? We're actually being tested on that. Hearing Liang Yue's words, the blonde kid immediately looked horrified, and then began to scratch his scalp frantically with both hands. The others also looked thoughtful upon hearing this. In the ninja profession, being a top student doesn't necessarily mean being strong. However, the necessary ninjutsu knowledge, tactical planning, coordination, and strategic theoretical knowledge are also essential. A failure like Naruto was just lucky enough to become the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, but to put it bluntly, in the eyes of many of Konoha's higher-ups, he has always been a tool how to ensure his growth, unleash his potential, and the strategic deterrent effect of being a Jinchuriki were the Hokage's primary considerations. Under such circumstances, the necessary training and cultivation were naturally indispensable, so this Chunin exam, the blonde kid would definitely pass. Otherwise, if Orochimaru hadn't attacked later, Naruto might have been able to advance to Chunin smoothly. As they spoke, the group had already arrived on the second floor, where a group of people were gathered outside the door of the assembly classroom, seemingly encountering some trouble and unable to enter. According to the development of the original plot, Liang Yue knew that this should be an illusion trick played by Tujinnan from Konoha. Of course, with his current abilities, even if he didn't know the plot, he could easily see through the truth. Moreover, the corridor on the second floor had a sign for the third floor hanging on it. Anyone could notice that there was a problem inside. But who gave you the right to set up such clumsy obstacles on the Chunin exam grounds without permission? Coming straight to the front of the exam room door, Liang Yue looked at the seemingly empty air in front of him, and with a grab and a throw, two extras screamed and flew out to the side. The next moment, after a flash of light and shadow in front of the people behind him, the scenery in front of them immediately returned to normal. The two people who were thrown out by him wanted to rush up and find a way to get back at him, but were then stopped by a young man. This young man was wearing a green jumpsuit, with a watermelon head and big copper bell eyes. "You were a little too heavy-handed just now, Junior Chunkyu. They should have just been playing around." Rock Lee looked at him with bright eyes. "At this time I have been appointed by the third Hokage as the proctor for this Chunin exam, and I have the responsibility to maintain the smooth progress of the exam." Hearing this, Liang Yue didn't waste any words with him, and directly said with an official attitude, "Sure enough." When little Lee on the opposite side heard his words, he immediately shrank back a bit, and subconsciously shrank his head. In the Tujinnan behind him, who used the illusion, seeing that the situation was not good, turned around and slipped away. "Oh, I see. By the way, congratulations, Junior Chunkyu, on becoming a Chunin. Niji was very envious a few days ago." In this way, the group talked along the way, and soon came to the correct exam location on the third floor. A duel that was supposed to happen before the exam did not occur due to Liang Yue's intervention. However, little Lee was still very interested in Sakura. In just a short while, this watermelon-headed boy had already experienced the entire process, from boldly expressing his love to being rejected. To this, Liang Yue could only sigh, as expected of an extraordinary person, doing extraordinary things anyway. As far as he himself was concerned, apart from having pink hair, he didn't find any highlights in Sakura. Whether it was her personality, appearance, or personal traits, there was nothing that made him feel outstanding. It can be said that the reason why Sakura was able to grow up later and develop to the point where she could punch Kaguya Otsutsuki in the back of the head was purely because she was brought up by Naruto and Sasuke. However, life is probably like this, especially when you are young. In some unintentional moments, it is easy to cause many accidental loves and bonds. Opening the door and walking into the exam room, what greeted him was a room full of peers. Various familiar and unfamiliar figures were mixed among them, and each person had their own unique side eyebrows, makeup, war paint, tattoos, strange clothes. Some were wrapped in bandages, some had a golden-haired lion perm, some had steam whistle-like iron arm guards on their arms, and some had a large guard on their backs. In short, everyone looked full of momentum and unconventional. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Hinata, and others behind him were also unconsciously attracted by these strange peers, with faces full of curiosity and excitement. Of course, in Liang Yu's eyes, these people were just a bunch of charlatans. And the rural version at that, and the limited number of normal people inside were the real plot characters. The moment they walked into the venue, gazes converged on them, most of which were directed at Liang Yu. There was no way around it. In the past few years, although Liang Yu felt that he was quite low-key, although he would occasionally create a new ninjutsu and submit it to the Hyuga family, and then the Hyuga family would submit it to the Hokage, but that was also to pave the way for himself in advance, and it was unavoidable. At least he didn't publicize it, and he didn't show off anything among his classmates. So in this guy's consciousness, he believed that his reputation should only exist within the specific high-level vision of Konoha village. However, since the last mission in the Land of Waves, when a missing nin from Kirigakure was able to accurately say the ninjutsu he invented, Liang Yu was a little panicked. After returning to the village, he inquired fiercely. Only then did he realize that he had unknowingly become a great genius in the eyes of others. Chapter 324 Naruto and Chapter X27, S-Map Canon. After some investigation, Liang Yu understood his becoming a genius was not accidental, but deliberately orchestrated by someone in Konoha. First, there was the head of the Hyuga clan, who seemed to be eyeing the position of the next Hokage, so he needed to use Liang Yu to boost his reputation. Then, the higher-ups of Konoha wanted to push Liang Yu to the forefront, to make a name for the somewhat fading younger generation of Konoha in recent years, and earn prestige. By the way, it could also help divert attention from Naruto, the nine-tailed Jinchuriki. In fact, everyone could see that since the fourth Hokage's accidental death, although the third Hokage had taken over again and persevered until now, the current Konoha village still lacked a great master who could hold the fort. Jiraiya and Tsunade were strong, but they were never home, so there were bound to be times when they couldn't reach in time. Originally, Orochimaru, who had Otaku attributes, also defected a few years ago. As the third Hokage grew older, many things had already been put on the agenda. It's just that, after the Canopy Bridge incident, Kakashi was the first to become decadent among the younger generation. The Uchiha clan was originally full of talent, and both Uchiha Shisu and Itachi were very good, but later, one of them committed suicide, and the other defected incidentally. Even Sasuke's status in the village is very awkward now, and it is impossible for him to be reused. Might Guy is indeed powerful, but his personality is too silly, destined to be justified. Liang Yu's appearance has somewhat relieved Konoha's embarrassment in this regard, and with the successive emergence of several self-created ninjutsu, people vaguely see the shadow of the second Hokage in him. Of course, being a genius, having strength, and having talent is one thing, but becoming Hokage is another. In short, according to Liang Yu's investigation and speculation, the reason why he was able to be known by the peers in the venue without realizing it was largely due to the joint efforts of a group of people in Konoha. What's wrong, Chunkyu? Hearing someone's sudden sigh, Hinata immediately looked over with some curiosity, asking with concern, "It's nothing, I just suddenly thought of an idea for a new ninjutsu. Go and sit down with your companions, the exam will start in a while." Oh, after coaxing Hinata to her seat, Liang Yu turned his head and found that Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Rock Lee, and others were gathered in an open space on the side of the venue. They seemed to be surrounding a bespectacled man, asking something. Looking closer, he realized that this person was sharing some information he had investigated. Some famous peers in the venue had been collected by the other party and written on separate cards. The identity of this bespectacled man need not be said. It was the spy professional of Konoha village, Yakushi Kabuto, who had secretly defected to Orochimaru. At this time, Liang Yu had been very concerned about this person for a while. After all, this was related to his main quest, hunting the culprit. Liang Yu had also evaluated Yakushi Kabuto many times, and the final feeling was a bit contradictory. If you say he is bad, it is definitely a little bit, but at most, he can only be regarded as an accomplice. But if you say he is the culprit, Yakushi Kabuto did play an important villain role in the next Ninja World War, reviving a large number of deceased ninjas for Black Zetsu. But he finally pulled back from the brink, and if it weren't for him, Sasuke might have died in this case. Liang Yu was really a bit confused and could only temporarily include this person in his controversial list. After learning about the strength and potential rankings of a group of ninjas of the same age from Yakushi Kabuto, for a moment, the entire venue was silent. Hundreds of people looked at him together. Surprise, astonishment, bewilderment, disdain, amusement, ridicule, silence. Facing this little blondie who was firing a map cannon, Everyone showed different expressions at this moment, but under the gaze of these many eyes, Naruto was not stage frightened at all, but instead looked confident, looking at everyone with scorching eyes, quite a bit of a tit-for-tat meaning. In the next moment, several ninjas who couldn't stand his actions immediately turned into black shadows and rushed forward quickly. One of them, who ran the fastest, even flew up directly and threw a powerful swing punch at Naruto's face. But compared to the original plot, Naruto is still a bit unreliable in personality now, but he still has some real skills. Seeing the ninja in front of him punching him, the little blondie didn't dodge. Nor did he choose to parry, but subconsciously leaned forward and instantly thrust out a knee strike with a muffled sound of bang. He immediately kicked the person flying, involuntarily curling up into a shrimp in midair. This was the habit Naruto had developed after practicing with Liang Yue for more than 2 years, because Liang Yue would generally use gentle fist for practice when fighting them. Facing the Hyuga family's gentle fist, Naruto, Sasuke, and the others came up with a strategy. After being beaten many times, either keep a distance and release a long-range attack from afar, or seize the opportunity to attack quickly when he makes a move. Once you hesitate, you will fall into the gentle fist's momentum, and it is almost impossible to recover the situation. The ninja who ran up obviously didn't know this, so he was knocked down in one encounter. However, the other party was obviously not an easy person to deal with, at least in terms of fighting style. He was somewhat different from the opponents Naruto usually encountered. I saw that although this person was knocked away, accompanied by the swing punch, he took the lead in throwing. A series of holes attached to the outside of the iron arm suddenly formed a certain resonance with the air. Wu-a sound like a whistle suddenly sounded, short and intense. The sound was not loud, nor was it harsh, but the frequency of the vibration was very particular, and Naruto, who was close at hand, involuntarily covered his ears. With a look of pain on his face immediately afterward, a burst of vomiting surged in his chest, causing the little blondie to kneel directly on the ground. Cough cough. Wah. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Wah, a special vibration frequency, mainly attacking the blood in your blood vessels. Quickly use chakra to calm your body. Seeing this, Yakashi Kabuto next to him also came to Naruto's side with a concerned look, reminding him at this moment, the bespectacled brother's expression was sincere, and his words were earnest. Anyone who saw it would think that this person must be a warm-hearted and harmless young man. Even Sasuke and Sakura next to him unknowingly developed a bit of trust in him in their hearts. I have to say, as a professional spy, Yakashi Kabuto's acting skills are really admirable. Chapter 325, Orochimaru. Bang! Just then, accompanied by a cloud of dust, the proctor from Konoha finally appeared. However, in reality, according to Liang Yue's observation, this group of people had actually arrived at the venue long ago, but they had temporarily concealed their presence with ninjutsu. Liang Yue, who maintained his Byakugan all year round, naturally saw all of this. Professional spies like Yakashi Kabuto, and special ninjas like Gaara who possessed the power of the tailed beast, probably had already noticed it as well, but none of them pointed it out. After appearing, the proctor with a scarred face immediately stopped the fighting on the spot, and then announced the start of the exam. Chunkyuhum, there's an extra paper here. You can do it too. I have to do it too. Aren't I already a chunin? Anyway, we're watching. No one will make trouble in the venue, and you're just idle as a proctor. Okay. In this way, Liang Yue also received a test paper from his colleague, Scarface. Afterwards, he sat on the proctor's seat with a speechless expression, pretending to take a pen from the small pocket on his vest, and began to work on the exam questions. There were a total of 9 questions on the test paper. According to the original plot and Liang Yue's joint observation, this exam was indeed not simple. Most of them were beyond the scope and syllabus, and some of the exam content had even reached the scope of Jonin. So obviously, relying on this group of fledgling graduates present, there would definitely not be many who could pass smoothly in the normal exam mode. It's no wonder that in the original plot, a cheating performance that could be called a dance of demons was staged in the venue, because the purpose of the question setter was to make them cheat. This exam adopts a deduction system, with a total of 10 questions. 1 point will be deducted for each wrong answer, and 2 points will be deducted for each time cheating is caught. If someone in a team has points deducted to 0, the entire group will be eliminated. In front of me, clumsy cheating behavior is self-destruction. The duration of this exam is 1 hour, and the final 10th question will be announced 45 minutes after the exam starts. Sure enough, under the proctor's almost straightforward reminder, there was soon a commotion in the venue. On the surface, no one made any excessive sounds, but in private, everyone on the test table was showing their own special abilities: various reflecting mirrors, manipulating threads, listening to sounds to identify positions, sand ninja eyeballs, Sharingan, Byakugan, shadow imitation technique, insect observation techniques, mental control techniques, dog language translation, etc. had already spread throughout the venue. Even the test paper in Liang Yue's hand became the target of some people who considered themselves highly skilled because, after the exam started, a certain academic genius spent less than 10 minutes to complete all 9 questions on the paper. Afterwards, this guy spread the test paper on the table, leaned back on the chair, and then began to seriously observe the entire examination process of the candidates opposite him. Midway, Naruto, who was at the bottom and a pure academic, almost scratched his head for the questions on the paper. Later, he even looked towards Liang Yue for help as time passed. The atmosphere in the arena began to become more and more heated. The originally surging undercurrents of various methods in the examination room were almost brought to the surface. However, the proctors did not interfere with this, and remained aloof with cold expressions in the process. Some candidates who could not withstand the pressure of the examination room began to choose to withdraw one after another, voluntarily giving up this Chunin exam. Then, along with them, the entire group of 3 behind them was also ordered to be disqualified until 45 minutes later. The original crowd of hundreds of people in the venue was now only half left because by that time, the proctor of the exam may not be me. As soon as Scarface said this, the atmosphere in the arena suddenly froze, and an invisible pressure began to spread among the candidates. Soon, everyone began to look at each other, at a loss. Obviously, as a group of newcomers who had just graduated from the ninja school, the candidates certainly did not expect in advance that they would face such harsh conditions. Once they cannot answer the 10th question, they will forever lose the opportunity to advance as a ninja. This kind of punishment is simply too inhumane. They had hardly heard of such consequences for a time. Many candidates began to sweat on their faces and became a little sneaky, breathing rapidly. Soon, under the heavy pressure of this matter concerning their future, successively, some people could not withstand the mental torture and the possible consequences, and chose to give up and withdraw. HMPH. Don't underestimate people. Even if I'm a genin for the rest of my life, I won't give up. I'm going to be Hokage. At this moment, a firm shout suddenly rang out in the arena. Everyone turned their heads to look, and it was actually Naruto who slapped the table and expressed his determination and dissatisfaction to the proctors. Even though he couldn't answer a single question on this test paper, that wasn't a reason for him to back down. Well, these 2 questions don't seem to contradict each other, and this inexplicable self-confidence and perseverance is really touching. However, as Konoha's trump card, no matter how the little blonde-haired kid makes trouble, in the end, everyone's purpose is actually to train him. Others are at most just accompanying the prince in his studies. Sure enough, it's exactly the same as the arrangement in the original plot. After receiving Naruto's statement and boasting, the scarred-faced proctor quickly changed his face in front of the candidates. The originally fierce face was also changed into a kind smile and said that the question just now was the test of the 10th question. The content of the first 9 questions is not to test whether you answer the questions correctly or incorrectly, but to test the ability to collect information. The 10th question is to test everyone's ability to keep secrets. Only those who can persist to the end and are worthy of their teammates' trust can pass the test. Then, the scarred-faced proctor immediately announced that everyone remaining in the venue had passed this exam. Clang. A crisp sound. Just as the scarred-faced man's voice fell, the glass window next to the examination room was suddenly broken. Amidst the scattered glass, a graceful figure suddenly flew in from the outside. 2 kune were inserted into the ceiling, and a banner was pulled up in the examination room. I am the proctor of your second test, Matera Shianko. Now everyone pack up and follow me to participate in the second exam. After a while, everyone came to the entrance of Konoha's Forest of Death under the leadership of this female ninja. Wearing a fishnet outfit, Liang Yue also continued to follow beside her. However, as a proctor, he did not have the qualifications to enter this practical test area under this regulation. Liang Yue really didn't understand what the use of his proctor position was. The content of the second exam is very simple, that is, to reach the tower building located in the center of the Forest of Death within 5 days. At the same time, all the candidate teams are divided into 2 parts, and each holds 2 different scrolls, Heaven and Earth. Only teams that can obtain both Heaven and Earth scrolls at the same time will meet the prerequisite conditions. Moreover, this test encourages each group of people to fight each other, and allows for personnel damage, so before entering the examination room, you must first sign a life and death contract. In this process, Liang Yue kept his Byakugan open, looking at the remaining group of candidates. Soon, he found something unusual in a person wearing a bamboo hat and with a somewhat disgusting appearance. Is this person Orochimaru? As expected, he is not an ordinary person. Although there is not much chakra in his body, this person is really a bit strange. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.